Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome to the AV Experience. Tonight, we're going to have a lot of fun. Got a cool topic for you. We'll be answering home theater questions. We are in episode 97. So we're ready to rock and roll. Hope you guys are having a fantastic week. Fellas, what's been going on?
I bought furniture, as I was
bought
telling these
furniture?
guys. Yeah. It was time. The couch in the living room was looking a little ratty. So we went from whatever kind of cloth that was to leather. And then we got some tables today.
Okay.
And that was, you don't realize how long it takes to pick that stuff until you realize how long it takes to pick that stuff.
Yeah. I think furniture shopping is one of my least favorite things to do.
I don't mind it. I just don't like that there's 5 million options. And then if you're looking online, like if you look at Wayfair, right, which I think a lot of people do, and then you image search it through Google, you'll find it at like 500 different outlets, and it's almost always cheaper somewhere else. So then it's never ending.
Are your Huskies allowed on the couch or not
No.
allowed?
Not right now.
Were they with the cloth?
Though?
We just kind of gave up with the cloth.
They're going to be on there at night.
They
That's
will.
What my dog does.
Well, during
the
day, they, I guess, ignore it. They don't like the leather as much. So maybe it's a win-win. I don't know. They haven't tried.
Once they scratch it up a little bit, they'll like it more, be more comfortable.
So this leather is supposed to be, you're supposed to patina it, is what I'll call it. So it's made for that. I did watch the guy that was delivering it. I don't know what I'm going to do about this yet. I felt bad, but at the same time, I'm kind of worried about the couch. He dropped it off the dang truck.
No.
Yeah. And I don't know that he knew that I saw him. And then I go out and ask him if he wants some help. And then he's pulling it up to the driveway so that we didn't get the paid delivery, so they wouldn't take it in the house.
Right.
And then he drops it off the dolly.
Man.
And I'm like, and I didn't say anything. He didn't apologize. And then I've got it all on camera because my driveway is covered.
Like, all right,
so I'm like, and then I'm just wondering, do I say something? Because I know if I say something, like, he might get in trouble. But at the same time, I mean,
maybe he kind of should.
He dropped my couch off twice.
Yeah.
Not just once, twice.
Oh,
so
it sounds like he may ought to consider other career opportunities.
Like
not delivering couches.
Yeah.
I mean, answering telephones might be in his future or something.
I mean, I felt bad though, because it was just one guy and these couches were not light. I mean, he had a dolly, but
it just wasn't too balanced.
Did you ask him to come help move your subwoofer while he was there?
I'd be like, hey, seems like you've got a solid track record. You want to try something heavier?
Yeah, no. You've got this under control, man.
No, we did find a moving company that's going to help with that.
Cool.
I paid the deposit to have the floor done, so hopefully that'll get moving soon. And then I start painting this weekend, I think. So, or this week. Hopefully,
progress on the room.
Hopefully, I'll be alive next weekend. I ordered a respirator, but the fumes might get me. So I got ventilation and stuff. I was telling these guys earlier that I bought a bunch of that AC Infinity stuff for grow farms, and I gotta pipe the air out into. Should I pipe the air out or pipe? You want to pipe it out, right?
I would think so. Remove it, not bring
both.
fresh
Go out the window. Yeah.
I'd put a box fan or something at the top of your stairs. Or a couple of them, push air down and then try to push air out too.
Well, I'm going to. So I have to tape off the doorway, because if I don't, there's going to be mist everywhere because I'm spraying it.
Yeah.
So you'd still put a box fan in there? I don't know how I would do that.
Well, if you're taping off the doorway, but
I know
you
how
need some fresh air intake.
I know how
somewhere.
I'll tape in a box fan, but I'll do it coming in from the unfinished part of the basement, so it's underneath the stairs, so I don't really care if any spray goes in there at all. And
you're
then I'll
come out looking like you're wearing blackface.
All right,
maybe.
No, I've got it now. I've got the perfect idea. You take your AC Infinity hose and route that directly into your air filter mask, so it just blows fresh air into your face. You'll have a positive pressure system.
Oh man.
Scuba gear. I like that, Scott.
Yeah. There's some
No, I'm not growing marijuana. It was just, this was the most convenient and price appropriate equipment in order to get ventilation 75 feet into this room.
Hey, I use their equipment for ventilating my my home theater closet. It works great.
Yeah,
Price is right.
Yeah. Well, I've used their fans, but I didn't know they made ducting. Like they actually make the ducting. I didn't know that. So that's nice. It comes tomorrow, so we'll see how it all goes together. But enough about me. How was your guys' weekend?
Go ahead, Rusty.
And see, yesterday I worked out in the garage for a while, fixed a pressure washer, plugged up carburetor. You know, those things plugged so easy.
Was it just you just taking a little pin and boop on the jet? And
well, yeah, you take it apart and I spray it out with carb cleaner, and you do this move where you hold up the can, the carb, and you squint your eyes and then squirt. And you squirt it. Then you look through the sun and make sure, can I see light, and squirt it again. You do that a few times and you go wash your face, and yeah, lots of safety gear. I mean, no, I did wear glasses, but I always managed to get that carb cleaner all over me. But yeah, it just had a lot of varnish in it, and
it's not a moisturizer, Rusty.
Do what?
It's not a moisturizer.
No, it's not. It's not the best. I'm not recommending this as a practice. See, my son had a piano recital today, so we went and watched that. Went to church this morning.
How was the piano recital?
He did good. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was good. Then he's got the not the recital, but I forget what he's gonna get mad at me for saying this wrong, but where they get graded on it.
Oh.
You know, there's like the recital that you perform in public, and then there's like the private part where they grade you and you get, points awarded.
A test?
No, there's a name for it, and I always forget this. He'll probably jump up in the chat and correct me.
Is it gonna be demo material from his recital for the Mad VR Experience Center?
Maybe we should do a recording.
Yeah.
Live recording. What does that sound like in the Mad VR Experience Center?
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah,
it's a good idea. Yeah, so we went to the Steinway. Actually, so we're at Steinway where they do their performances, and there's pianos. Man, they're amazing. They're works of art. The pianos themselves.
Yeah,
and they're such works of art. Almost all of them are $100,000 and up. And I was like, well, I guess I don't feel so bad about what I spent on my theater anymore, because like that's that one piano. I'm sure they hold their value and probably appreciate in value. But my goodness.
I don't know if they do or not, because you look on Facebook Marketplace, there's like people giving away pianos, but they're old.
But Steinway piano.
Steinway's different though.
Like that's Yamaha, Steinway.
Yeah, Steinway is like that's the stuff.
What about you, Jonathan?
Yeah, my weekend was busy. Friday night and Saturday morning, I was at a Sagrada Bible Church camp doing some volunteer work, helping them get ready for camp season. And then we bought a used travel trailer 2018 on Friday for some summer camping. And so today, Megan and I, after church, went through that and tried to get that all ready to go. They gave us a lot of accessories, so it's just kind of sorting through what all he gave and cleaning it up and putting it in its right place.
Sometimes people say accessories, and it's unwanted accessories like
junk,
dead animals and stuff in the
not in this
travel
case.
trailer.
They gave us nice stuff like a bunch of camping chairs and a coffee maker and tons of bedclothes and just some kitchen stuff, pots, pans, that kind of stuff. And I don't know what in the world they were doing, but he gave me a 10-pack of wrenches that are probably this tall. They're just like To Kill a Man type wrenches. And I'm like, what are those doing in here? Like, what? There's not a bolt on this thing that's that big.
Well, it was probably used as a previous murder weapon, and then he's given it to you to dispose of the evidence. And now the cops are going to show up randomly at Jonathan's house. You're like, we see that you've got this travel trailer, and here's the murder weapon.
Oh boy,
Mr. Von England, I think you need to come with us.
That's
wow, those wrenches are something else.
I got a few questions for you.
Yeah, so I've nonstop for me this weekend.
Michael, what about you?
Long night last night, so I stayed up to about 5 a.m. editing today's video because I knew I'd be busy. We went to church this morning, came home probably about an hour after that. We went to my daughter. She's graduating high school this year. She had her pictures schedule like graduation pictures. We're like an hour and a half away, man. It's like, what the heck? Couldn't you find something in Plant City or
For senior
Lakeland?
pictures?
Yeah, like just her. It's like her and a photographer basically. But
Whose idea was this location? Was it hers or the photographer's?
My daughter's. She probably saw it on like, Instagram. Her friends are like, "Oh, where'd you go? Oh, that looks cool." So it was a music. It was the, not Ringley, not Ripley's. I think it's Ringling. Yeah, Ringling Museum. And I didn't realize it was like the Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, whatever circus kind of thing. Because there was an area, like a building that was a circus kind of museum, but then there was a big art gallery museum. And so we just kind of split up. Jessica and I were just walking around the museum. She had to pay to get in. It was like $25. And I asked one of the ladies, I'm like, was this like somebody's house, like this big mansion? She says, no, this was actually just bought by Mr. Ringling. And back in 1930 to house his 500 paintings. And some of these paintings are like 20 feet wide or 30 feet tall. I mean, some of them are massive. So he had this big honking collection. So
and it's a
we
house?
were there just like, I don't think it was really a house. It was kind of like a fortress. It almost looked like.
Can you imagine being so wealthy that you buy a house, not
Yeah.
for you,
No, this
but
is just
for
his
art?
artwork. She said they had those paintings, like in the couple of rooms, they had been in there since the 30s, like since he built it. So it was cool. I'm not a big guy on paintings, but it was cool. But so hopefully we'll see some great photos of my daughter in probably about 2 weeks. So just getting ready for graduation, man. Last one.
So I have to ask, because you do
Mhm.
photography.
Yeah.
How did that, is that any blow to the ego that she didn't want you to take pictures?
No, because I've been to every cheer comp, every cheer, whatever. And I've been the, photographer. What stinks about that is I don't get a chance to be dad.
Yeah.
I missed the whole routine. I don't even know how they did. The only time I know if they, like goofed something up is if my camera is zoomed in on the thing when they fall. And I'm like, oh no, that was bad. But sometimes I have no idea like how they did overall. So no, it doesn't. No, there's zero ego. I'm grateful that somebody else is going to have to edit 100 photos instead of me, So, and I enjoy photography, but I don't look at myself as like I don't enjoy photography, if that's weird. And all right, this is even stranger. I've always enjoyed taking photographs of electronics and speakers, but not people. I'm not a portrait photographer.
What a nerd.
Yeah, seriously. I would buy used gear, and before I even turned it on, I'd clean it up, wipe it down, and I'd photograph it. No lie. And then I'd share it online,
I say that
Flipform.
lovingly because it's something that
It's terrible. It's funny, but
I can almost guarantee that all of us have taken pictures of new things that we've bought before we've
Yeah.
used it.
Yeah. Like I didn't even hook. They're like, how did they sound? I'm like, I don't know. I've been too busy cleaning and photographing them to share them online. It's like, look at what I bought, because I always
does your coffee table have like photo albums full of just your gear from the years?
No, but here's the thing. If
all
you
of his Youthman deals, he's never actually used. He just bought them to take pictures of and then resold.
Honestly, and that's part of it. I would buy it and I'd photograph it because I know eventually I'm going to sell it because I'm going to find something better for cheaper, sell it for market value or less.
You're like the people on dating profiles that they take pictures of stuff from 15 years ago and then you sell it 15 years later. And then you're like, well, this isn't what this looks like.
Yeah.
God.
No.
Misrepresentation.
No, I have people, it's opposite. I have people using my photographs
now
of gear that I have bought and owned and used, and I find it on their stinking eBay ads and their Facebook ads. I'm like, man, that looks familiar. That looks just like my, back when I had the burgundy walls in my home theater. I'm like, that's interesting. That looks like my theater room. Or I'll just say, oh, cool, nice photo. And they're like, yeah, I pulled it off of Google. I'm like, yeah, it's because it's mine. I just call them out. Like, what in the world, man? Yeah, Michael's a product photographer. Yeah, I just never got into portrait photography. So, but you know, I've had my daughters, you know, every time they would go to prom, typically I'm there taking prom photos before the event. You know, they'll go out and like all their friends will meet somewhere and we'll take photos of everybody. So I've always done that every year. But
I mean,
the
I could see that because I wouldn't know what to do with myself at those events anyway. So at least that gives me a purpose.
Yeah.
I
So
view
we wouldn't
myself
actually,
like a service dog. Like if I
Yeah,
don't have a purpose, I'm lost.
we wouldn't actually go like to prom, but they would go to, let's just say, out like Hollis Gardens, where there's just an outdoor venue with some pretty stuff. And so her and her friends would meet. Then I'll take photos, and then they go off to dinner and prom on their own, so, or with their group. So yeah, so that was pretty much so I'll be going to bed early tonight, I think, at least by midnight. It will not be 5 a.m. I promise you. So, well, cool, man. Let me say hi to some folks in the chat. Good to see you guys. Happy Sunday to you. Good to see Tyler. K-Man. Who else we got? Chris in the house. SRW 1000. Bunch of folks. Rob, good to see you, man. Lewis. Grave Danger, good to see you. Derek, what's up, buddy? Cool, man. So here's the topic for tonight. We're just going to dive right into it. If you got questions on home theater, drop those in the chat. We'll star those and we'll come to them after we get done with the topic. But tonight, I thought we'd have a little fun. What is the worst home theater purchase that you've made? And I think I spelled that wrong, but here, I'm going to update it. What is the worst home theater purchase you've made? Who wants to go for it? I got a funny one. I think it's funny. Kind of interesting.
Well, you're throwing this out there, so you
All right,
got to
here we
go
go.
first.
So I've always enjoyed buying used stuff. When I first started building this home theater, it's been almost 18 years ago when we bought this home. I bought a lot of used gear. Well, I had a guy reach out to me. I think it was on the Klipsch Klipsch forum, because I used to be a moderator there, spent a lot of time there pretty much every night. Kind of like you, Jonathan and Ryan, you're always in the AVS forum every night, or at least quite often. So that was me in the Klipsch world. And so I had a guy reach out to me. He said, "Hey, Michael, I just found a killer deal on some Klipsch cinema series." It was a cinema, I think it was a subwoofer. Now this is a big monster subwoofer. It's probably 6 foot tall, 4 foot wide, probably 2 foot deep. It's a big old monster thing. And he said, "Man, it's a great deal." He said, "If I sent you the money," he said, "I actually have a house, like a beach condo in Florida. We'll be coming down like in 3 months or 2 months, something like that. Would you be willing to go check it out and everything? If it looks cool, will you buy it? And then I can, or I'll send you the money. You can buy it. And then a couple months, I'll come pick it up from your house." I said, "Yeah, cool." So I show up at this dude's house, and sure enough, it's still in the box. And I don't remember what we paid, but it was really, really inexpensive. And so I'm loading it up, and I just happened to ask him, like, "Just curious, man, like, you got any other good deals?" Because I'm thinking, for me, I want to hook up. I didn't need that big subwoofer, and I had nowhere I could even put that thing. And he said, "Actually, I got like 3 more of these." I'm like, "What? Like, how does somebody have 3 more of these?" And
What was the model of this?
it would probably be the KPT. Let's see, Klipsch KPT. Let me just Google it real quick. It's going to be a massive subwoofer. Images. Let's see if I can find similar.
Was it a professional sub?
Yes.
The KPT 315 LF?
It's just a big old monster sub. KPT. So this would have been, this is probably 10 years ago, a long, long time ago. Oh, here it is right here. Guarantee it's this. KPT 8. Here, let me share my screen. Give you an idea.
I feel like we need some context, which is why.
Oh, you will. Oh, you're going to get it, buddy. This is going to be good. So it's this one right here, roughly.
Oh.
So you can see, it's a big cabinet. I think it's an 18-inch driver. May not be that exact model, but I'm pretty sure that's pretty much what it was. So
remember when I said the wrenches from Jonathan? I think
Yes.
this guy hid bodies in these subs.
So, and I may mix up the story just a little bit, but I'm like, I don't I think we paid like $500 for it or something, which is cheap for pretty much a brand new subwoofer. And I think I asked him at that time, oh, no, I know what it was. So I'm like, I don't have any more money. I don't need any more subwoofers. I'm buying this for a friend. He just needs it for his home theater. And so I thanked him, took off, and I get home and the guy asked me, said, hey, would you mind like play with it if you want to, crank it up, use it, have fun with it. And then I'll come pick it up in 2 months or whatever. So I hook it up and everything's fine. I mean, it didn't like blow me away, but I didn't have a big amplifier for it. I don't remember if I was trying to just run it off an AVR or something. I was just testing it. And I look on the back and I was like, well, this is odd. Like there's something missing. It was a serial number.
Oh boy.
You know where that's going. I was
boy.
like, oh snap. And so I don't remember if I texted the guy or I asked the question, and I'm like, just curious, you mentioned you got like 2 more of these. How in the world did you end up with 3 brand new Klipsch Pro Cinema subwoofers and you're selling these? He's like, well, he said something to the effect of, I was working with a guy on blah, 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 and he owed me some money and the deal went sideways. And at that time, I didn't know what that meant. What does a deal went sideways? I think I even Googled it. I was so naive. Like, what the heck is deal went sideways? Because I'm like, does that mean it was sketchy? So needless to say, I had no desire to go back and buy another one from him because I'm all about deals. But I'm like, all right, there's probably something shady that went down with this. So yes, I purchased it. It wasn't my own, but I told the guy about it. He didn't care. He's like, it's just going in my condo. I'll rarely use it. But that was probably the worst purchase that I've made in home theater.
How do you even steal something like this?
I have no.
I'm trying to imagine.
I don't even know where they came from.
Well, I'm trying to imagine. My brain immediately went to some place like Circuit City, and some guy just rolls into the back with a dolly and just walks out the front door with this cabinet that must be the size of like 4 people.
But they don't sell stuff like I don't even know where. I guess you would have to buy that from a dealer.
Maybe he went to like some defunct theater and got behind the screen and was just pulling it. Not that these were there.
Yeah, but it was in the original boxes. Like they looked like they were never open.
Listen, I'm trying to come up with ideas here, and you're just shooting them down.
Like I said, it was crazy though. But yeah, it was yeah, Michael's out there buying hot audio. Yeah, so the interesting thing is I've bought a ton of gear in the used market, and I've never once ever got the impression that it was, stolen or it was, because usually you can talk to the person, you can get a feel for like, are they legit? You just ask a couple of questions, how long you had it, why are you selling it? And then you start talking about audio for 30 minutes. You're like, okay, this dude's pretty legit. But yeah, they fell out of the back of a truck. Wink, wink. Yeah, I kind of think so, man. It was sketchy. I'm like, okay, yeah. But that was my story, man. It's pretty wild. So what about yours? Worst home theater purchase and this could be something personal maybe you bought and you're like, man, that was a waste of money, or
Jonathan knows what mine's going to be.
It was crap or whatever. But I think we're going to have some fun with this.
Mine's the LG projector.
Oh. Yeah, if you guys haven't heard this is
man, I'm sure they have. I mean, it was. So this was
a lot of people. A lot of my audience are new. We get new guys.
So this is not saying that everything from all of these projectors were this way. I don't know. This could have just been a bad apple. Who knows? Yeah. But in 2021, right before Michael came out to do the home theater tour in Kansas City, I decided that I was going to try and sell my NX7 and get the NZ series that was just starting to come out, right? They were just starting to ship. Kind of, not really. They didn't really start shipping until after the new year, but I was
a couple months out, I think.
I was
longer than that.
I had high expectations, right? And it didn't happen. So then I bought this LG. Again, nothing against LG. It could have just been a bad sample. I don't know. And because everybody on the forum, you remember when this thing came out and everybody's like, man, this thing's amazing.
Yes.
They were bragging on it.
and I got it installed. I'm speechless because I'm trying to go back and say something positive.
It's hard to
but I
describe
can't.
what we saw, to be honest with
So
you.
we turned it on when everybody came over, and I warned everybody when they came over. And it looked kind of funny because it was this little white box sitting in the middle of the room. And this was before we did the theater tour. And I distinctly remember Nick seeing it for the first time and going, yeah, I can fix that.
I remember that.
An hour and a half later of him and Tony trying to fix it, and they just made it worse. And it's not because they don't know what they're doing. I mean, Nick and Tony, especially Nick, with calibration, nothing against Tony, but Nick is, with everything that he does, is he knows what he's doing, right? And so they were trying to do things, and it was not working. So what the problem was is this image was so bad, it had gradations in 2 different directions. It had a horizontal degradation, like gradation, right?
So when you say that,
a color shift.
Color shift. It was a color shift. So we were going from like white into blue or something, and then the other way was going like white into red or something like that. So if you tried to fix one of them, you made the other one worse.
Yeah.
So there was no way to go about trying to fix this issue, because no matter what you did, you were just exacerbating the problem. And there was, after about an hour and a half,
they were determined. I'll be honest.
They were very determined. After
like,
about an hour and a half,
we
they
can
just
figure
went,
this
yeah,
out.
we can't fix this. I give up. There's no recovering from this. So that is, I think they coined it the God projector, because everybody was talking about how amazing this projector was supposed to be. And it was anything but in that situation. It was no NX7 killer, at least the sample that I got. And then when we got the NZ7, and then the NZ8 and the NZ9 and everything. I mean, I think when the projector comparison came, we must have had like half the country's JVC projectors in my basement.
That was hilarious, man.
But
That
the
was cool, though. I never, and that was where the heartbeat of M-Wave started, because I'd never been to anything like that.
Yeah.
That was just a fun event, man.
So
That
then
was really cool.
eventually it just, I think I had gotten that projector luckily into the point where it was on their holiday return policy. So I could, because I bought it off Amazon. So I just returned it.
Yeah.
Luckily, I didn't have to stick with that unfortunate situation.
It was, I mean, like, I've seen some projectors that are okay. Like, okay, it's not a great image. This was bad.
Well, what about I won't say this one's name because I think a lot of people have good luck with it. And I think this is a common problem with this projector. What about the one that was acting as its own light source?
Light source outside the side of the unit.
The fan
bleeding
slot.
out the side. That
Shooting out
was
Ghostbuster green.
Oh, that was funny. And we couldn't figure out where the light was coming from. We're like, what is this ambient light? And it was the projector providing its own ambient light.
It's just shooting out the side of the projector.
That's how it wins shootouts, man. It makes the other projector look worse.
It's washing out the one on the side.
Watch this trick.
Yeah.
Oh, mercy.
But luckily, myself and Michael spent somebody else's money, and I was able to return mine. So we got out of ours.
Yeah.
Okay, we weren't stuck. What about you guys?
I don't even think it was just the color shift that was bad on that, man. It was like, you remember how, I mean, that projector, the LG 810, it was talking about on the
focus
forums
problems too. It had focus uniformity.
How it was like going to be an Epson killer, and it was comparative to the JVC, and by the time you got the black levels down dark enough to be tolerable, the image was so dim it was pretty much unusable. And if you cranked up the brightness, then the black levels went to junk. And the contrast, Chirpy called it like crunchy contrast.
Crunchy.
Something was wrong with the contrast.
Well, how do you know something's very bad when you start using words that are typically used to describe audio to describe video?
Right.
That's just
it was not good.
Loss of words at that point.
And then nobody really even wanted to hurt your feelings, Ryan. The first time we saw it at that meet, I think before Nick and the other guys were there, like some of the guys on the way home were like, that projector was awful. We didn't want to say how bad it was, but it was not good.
And I will freely admit that at that point, I didn't really know anything about the space. So,
but you knew it didn't look right.
How
here's the funny part about that, Ryan. There was a guy named Lou there, and he's one of the Kansas City guys, and he owned one of those projectors. And Lou said, "This looks right. I mean, this is how mine looks, and I like it." So, different strokes for different folks.
Interesting.
Well, at some point when I was playing with it before everybody came over, I think at some point everybody goes through this where you're in denial because you're trying to rationalize spending this money and making yourself feel better so that you don't have to send it back and create more work for yourself. And it just creates this echo chamber inside of your own head of, man, this actually looks okay. But in the back of your head, you're like, this looks like complete garbage, but you're in denial because you don't want to admit that it does, because if you admitted it, then you have to do something about it.
Yeah.
It goes back to our bias conversation. You don't want to admit to yourself that you bought the wrong thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
My wife did because it was significantly cheaper. And then the rails fell off the train and there was no returning.
How much was that projector? A couple grand?
No, I want to say it was 1,000 something.
No, isn't it $2,000 or $3,000? I think.
Was it really
2,700, something like that? It was about the same price as the Epson, if I remember
well,
right.
While you guys go, I'm going to look at like Camel, and see if I can get the price history on it.
I think it took a little drop too after a while because you had the red laser speckle that people complain about real hard on the forums.
Yeah.
But that didn't bother me terribly, but it was there. It was observable. And it was just like a million straws that kind of piled up and made it.
It was the HU 810 PW, right?
Yeah, that sounds
Okay.
right.
Oh man.
I don't remember the acronym letters after it, but it was 810 for sure.
ASS is what the acronym was. If I remember. Okay, enough about that.
So what about you guys? Worst home theater purchase that you've ever made?
I got a couple. When we started this conversation, my first thought was like, well, I've never made a purchasing mistake. Like, clearly I can't participate. And then I thought of several very quickly.
All right. You're like, oh, wait, I'm starting to add up.
First one, you remember, man, it was probably 8-9 years ago. Curved OLEDs were the hot new thing. And I thought, like, what would be cooler than a curved TV screen in my living room with like windows off to the side? And it was a 55-inch, so it didn't really need a curve, but I totally fell for that one. And it was really cool for about 5 minutes. And then you realize you have a reflection no matter where you sit. It's like a parabolic dish. That was terrible, but I'd spent a lot of money, so I was kind of stuck with that one for a while.
Right. And roughly what did that cost back then?
And it was probably $3,000, $2,500, $3,000 at that time.
Woo! Terrible.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so that was a stinger. And then the other one, so your story, Michael, sparked this one because so I had this friend, or I guess I don't know if he's a very good friend.
Acquaintance.
He's we were good friends for a long time, and he said, "Hey, I got these speakers. These really high fidelity, high quality. I think the brand name was like High Fidelity Speaker, Audiophile Speakers or something." And he's like, "These things are amazing, and you got to check them out." And I bought them, but they're tower speakers. I bought them. I just, I thought I was gonna use them, but they're too big for my space. And I'm like, "Hey, I'm interested." And he said, I paid this much, but I'll sell them to you. It was like I think it was like $100. I think maybe $100 for both speakers. I'm like, well, that's a bargain, man. He tells me this story, and I was probably like, give me a little bit of a break. I was probably like 20, 21 years old, and I didn't know better, didn't have such life experience. So he tells me the story of how he was at a gas station and this guy in a white van. Yeah. And none of this triggered anything with me. To me, the whole story was very plausible.
And
yeah,
you're
I got
just sitting,
scammed by my own friend.
Rusty's just sitting here, man, buying speakers from a random guy in a white van down by the river. Totally
Exactly.
plausible.
I mean, I
Did he sell
trusted my
LG too?
friend, and he tells me the whole story. He's like, they went to do this install, and they accidentally, when they put them on the truck, they accidentally put a couple extra on there. And if they go to return them, they have to do all this paperwork, and they were already bought and paid for. Like, it's, you know, so nobody's gonna even, like, they were paid for. They were just leftovers, and so I bought white van speakers, but through a distributor. I didn't even buy them directly from the source, from the white van. I bought it from my friend.
Marked up white
Right,
van.
probably.
Your friend made a profit off of you, buddy.
And so I get them home, and audiophile was spelled AUDIOFILE on the box. And I said, this is strange. Like, then alarm bells. That's when the alarm bells start going off. And I looked at, I Googled it, this is probably back in the beginning of Google. So found a few posts about the, white van speaker scam. And I told him about it. He's like, I don't know what to tell you. 30 years now. It's like, wow. Wow, that's tough.
I ain't taking the money back.
I felt so dumb. I still do. I feel like every week I just come on here and make confessions to the world.
That's what we do, man. Makes us feel good. But don't you feel better now?
I know. I've been living with that burden all these years.
There's tens of thousands of people that will now know this. So,
well, yeah, this is a public service announcement. Don't buy speakers from your friend who bought them from a guy in a white van.
In the grand scheme of things, though, there's probably more expensive things that you could have bought. I mean, at least white van speakers historically are not horrifically overpriced. I did go look at the camel data for the LG projector. When I bought it, $3,000.
Okay, yeah, Jonathan, right on the money, man.
Man,
you forgot how bad of a purchase that was.
An Epson, it was not.
No,
again,
comparison.
Maybe it was a bad sample.
Yeah,
don't know. This is not me talking badly about LG. LG makes some phenomenal TVs.
Yeah,
it was just an experience.
You know how when you have something tragic happen to you in life, like your body's smart enough to shut down the brain, and so you forget that. I think that's what happened with you, man. You're like, I don't even remember how much I paid for it. That was a rough time.
Well, I did get the money back, so that's probably why I didn't really hold on to that.
Right. Oh man.
Repressed memories, right?
Yes, exactly.
So for my story, I don't think I have anything that funny, but I feel like probably the ones that stick out in my mind are the ones that were kind of disappointing. Like maybe you had high hopes for something and it didn't pan out that way.
Yeah.
I had an Onkyo 805, which was like a notorious legendary receiver from Onkyo. That was a really high quality, really high powerful amp from that time frame. And an 818 came out, and this was one of those receivers that kind of went through the Kansas City group. Like people were buying it and then selling it to their buddy type thing. So that was one of the stories. I didn't buy it originally, but I bought it from a buddy, and it was just not like 818 is higher than 805. So you think it should be better. It was not a better receiver. It didn't have the power, didn't have the THX ratings. It didn't have dual subwoofers. It had a lower level of Odyssey. Like it was a big step down. So that was disappointing.
Why is everybody selling it to their friends?
I think everyone was just like losing $100 when they're selling. There was no markup. It was just like, hey, I tried this. It's not really for me. Why don't you try it? I'll give you a little discount on what I bought.
Is this like the Kansas City white van AVR kind of thing?
It went through like 3 or 4 guys before it finally found a home. I'm not sure where it even ended up, but I think I was the second on the list. And then, I mean, to be quite honest,
you did it to somebody else?
Well, I sold it for a little bit of a loss. Yeah, I think I lost, if I remember right, $75 on it or something just to try it, and was disappointed. Went back to my 805. And then there's a story in there where I jumped to pre-pro and amplifier, like high-end stuff at one point, and couldn't hear any difference. And I spent a lot of money and couldn't hear any difference. Now I'm there with the pre-pro and amplifier. I don't know if I can hear any difference, but I can afford it now. I couldn't really afford it then. I was, buying something I shouldn't have bought. And then probably, I mean, this is probably going to make some people frustrated, but honestly, for me, if I'm being honest, the JVC NZ7 is one of those for me that I was kind of overall disappointed on, because it's a very pricey product, and it didn't do what I was hoping for. Like when I brought it home and my wife looked at it, she's like, this is 5% better than what you had. I was like, whoa, that's a lot of money from $1,000 to
like that law of diminishing
projector
return
for
is
5%.
like really at work here. And you were comparing that with a 50-40?
50-40 UB. And then I mean, you guys have heard me say it a bunch of times. It's everyone has different preferences, but I like my Epson LS 12,000 better than the JVC. So so that feels a little
When are you going to
disappointing.
sell it?
I should have already sold it a year ago. I'm watching them now on the forums. They're selling. There was a guy selling one for 6,000 the other day. I'm like, dang, I'm losing.
By the time you sell it, it'll be 3.
What's that? Say again.
I said by the time you sell it, it's going to be worth 3,000.
I know. I hate to lose money, but it's just sitting in the back bedroom, so I should.
The longer you hold on to it, the more you're going to lose. Unfortunately,
I mean, I'm not saying the JVC is a bad projector or anything like that. I'm just saying,
hoping it would be like a wow factor.
Yeah, a little bit of a disappointment for me compared to what I was hoping it would be. That's all.
I get it.
Yeah, you're expecting this, and you don't quite receive that.
The very first amplifier that I ever bought was a Parasound. I think it's like HCA 2205. So it's a 220 watt by 5. And so I was rocking just an AVR, probably it was either a Yamaha or a Onkyo or the Yamaha RXV 1800. I can't remember which one I had at that time. But a guy in North Florida, is probably about a 4-hour drive from me. And I was trying to, hit him up. I think he was in the Facebook group. I'm sorry, in Clips forum, and tried to talk him down. He's like, nah, I know what I got in it. I don't really need it. I don't even need the money. I always hate those sellers, man. I like them when they're motivated to sell. He wasn't really in the budge, and he wanted $950 for a 10-year-old amplifier. Golly, because I mean, it was probably $3,000, $3,500 new, maybe something like that. So, I mean, it was a good deal. I didn't really have 950. It was either 750 or 950. I can't remember.
I mean, it was Parasound at least.
I know, but and it was a beast of an amp. So I finally made the decision. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go get this, man. This thing's gonna rock my world. It's gonna change my life. Really similar to your story, man. I get it home. I hook it up. I had clip speakers, so they're very efficient. So I hook up this amplifier to them, and I'm thinking like I'm gonna just be night and day difference. In my brain, I heard some difference, but they were really subtle. It was like I heard more bass, even at low volume. I felt like instruments had like better separation, but was that in my brain? But it was like you. I was like, I mean, at most like 10% better. I'm going, dadgum, I just spent a lot of money for 10% increase. And those things are kind of disappointing. So I get that for sure. Man.
Trying to think if there's any others.
Ryan, there's a couple that I remember you mentioning before, so I think they're safe to mention again. You bought some subwoofers that you weren't too pleased with, right? Did you want to talk about that one?
Yes, we can talk about that.
And there was another one that was it was PS Audio. Was that one of them too?
You're just throwing me under the bus, aren't you?
Hey, I'm just trying to come up with good
Mine were
content.
very expensive mistakes.
This is just fun stuff.
I was trying to. I blocked those out.
Sorry,
and now
repressed memories resurfacing.
I did throw you under the bus with the white van, and now
that's true. Hey, I got a whole emotional support team in the chat, though. I appreciate
I'm watching
this.
everybody. They're like, yeah, I've been there.
How these work, how this worked, and this is actually. That's actually how I met Jonathan. And then he ruined my life.
Oh, man.
In a good depending on how you look. If you ask my wife, probably not a very good way. Put me into the industry. So I bought 2 Rel 215 SE 212 SEs because they weren't 15s, they were 12s. And I bought them. And I bought them because I was told that they were musical. Musical. What I think people mean by musical is that the sub can't get below 30 hertz. I think that, 20 hertz, it's called 20 hertz. Okay. So that's what they mean by musical. And
That's a really
musical
pretty
part
sub.
of part of
I've
the
seen
sub. It is super pretty.
Yeah.
Super pretty sub.
Mhm.
Super pretty. It's got 2 active 12s and then a passive 12 out the back.
Mhm.
And I was told, and this is before I really knew anything, before Jonathan was like, let me show you what real bass is. And I thought they were awesome. The guy was like, yeah, these will pair really well with your Martin Logans. And I'm like, I didn't know any better. I'm like, subs pairing with speakers. This makes total sense. I
Mhm.
bought, we'll just go into this whole thing about Ryan railroading himself. I bought, thankfully, I bought them used cables.
Mhm.
I got PS Audio BHK 300 special edition monoblocks, 3 of them. For anybody that doesn't know, these amps MSRP are like $15,000 a piece.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Insane.
It's nuts.
Mm.
So, and I got 2 of the 212s. This was when I bought my Renaissance, the 15As, which I really did love. Like,
Mhm.
but that was based on my experience. I knew that I liked Martin Logan electrostatics. I still really like Martin Logan electrostatics. So I thought I need these. So I bought them.
Mhm.
But then it came with, I need subs, I need cables, and then I got a Marantz 8805, which was good.
Mhm.
That was good. So then what else did I do? How else did I shoot myself in the foot?
What else
so
did I do
then
wrong?
I'm thinking, man, I'm getting into this. I'm starting to browse AVS forums. I meet Jonathan in the Kansas City group. He says, come over, let me show you some stuff. We can talk. And I explain I'm new to the space. And then he turns on something, and in the back of my head, I'm thinking, my subs don't do that. So not shortly after I contacted the dealer, and I did lose money on this, but I was able to return them. Kind of. I forwarded them on to somebody else that bought them, and I had to pay for shipping and got railroaded in the shipping because I didn't know anything. I didn't know any better. Just got taken advantage of in that whole situation. So that's that part of it. The BHK stuff. So the PS Audio amps. I was convinced that I had a power problem in my house because if I played loud enough, all of the amps would turn off.
You're like, I need more juice.
And nobody could tell me what this problem was. And I thought it was my subs. I thought it was, and this persisted because I got rid of those Rels and I got JTR 4000 ULFs. So I upgraded.
Oh yeah.
Upgraded significantly.
Got you some real man
And those
speakers.
were fantastic. So I'm like, the subs are causing this because they're drawing tons of power. They're causing this problem. And this went on for like a year of not knowing what was. It only happened at high volumes. The other problem is they would run really hot because they're huge monoblocks. They're hybrids. They've got a tube stage in them. Whatever.
Didn't have anything to do with running 1 ohm, did it?
0 ohms, I think.
So anyway, we found out later through
Running hot.
testing that they were having problems with the Martin Logans. Right? They couldn't deal with the impedance of the Martin Logans and they were going into protection. So then we hooked up a $300 Behringer A800 and it was like, watch this. And it was able to do it just fine. All the PHKs were like, and choking under the impedance. And this little Class D Behringer A800 was working perfectly fine. You know, holding its drink in one hand, playing all the stuff in the other, and just rocking and rolling. So then eventually I ended up selling those at a pretty significant. I got a lot back out of them, but I did lose a decent amount of money. But I think, you know, we as people, silver lining of this is we as people don't really learn until we encounter a failure a lot of times. And this was a failure. And it forced me, hopefully, to learn the intricacies about how amplifiers work, you know, shortcomings that these amplifiers were running into with the impedance of the Martin Logans and a bunch of other stuff. So, Jonathan, you were the catalyst for
Losing
make me
lots
spend
of
a
money.
lot of money.
That's right.
And it continues to this day. I mean, we should change the name of the Mad VR Experience Center to the Jonathan Made Me Do It.
Oh man. Maybe it could just be one of the several hashtags. Hope
He
it doesn't
just held my
suck.
arm and put a
Maybe
lighter
do it.
underneath it and wouldn't let me go until I did something. Jonathan made me do it. But no, that was the direction that needed to happen. He was just there to kind of punch me in the face when I needed it. He didn't really punch me in the face. He just kind of told me that your subs suck and you should do this. He didn't tell me that either. He was very nice about it. I just like to make people think that he's not very nice.
So normally we'd go in order, but this one applies to what you're talking about. So I'm going to go and throw this up here. I find it says that I feel like some of the community can't find appreciation for anything other than single digit stuff now. Not everyone loves 418 subs with 10 kilowatts. Rails look nice, and that may be enough.
Absolutely. But I think you can get subs that look nice and have similar output for a lot less.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I don't think absolutely. Why would you not? Why would you not want single digit output if you can have it for the same price? Rails are not a cheap sub. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm of the mindset that I wouldn't want to pay for a Rails subwoofer when they will. If you're talking about a sub that won't do single digit output, why would I pay that extra price for one that won't do it?
So I did a home theater tour that had two of those subwoofers in it, the 212 SEs.
Mm-hmm.
And if Ryan, maybe you can kind of reflect on the price, but I think he said they were about 12,000 a piece. Does that sound
like
right?
4,500 or so.
Okay. So this is one of my first home theater tours. Okay. So $4,500 for technically 212s and a passive 12.
Yeah. So here's the issue with, and maybe this is something that I need to do, because I think there's a lot of audiophilia with this, and people are like, man, Rel's the way to go if you're a 2-channel guy. And the funny thing is,
We hear that a lot. Yeah.
A lot of times the Rels that get brought up are like the 8-inch or the 10-inch.
Mm-hmm.
What is that doing? The sub in the speaker, like people will pair an 8-inch or a 10-inch Rel with something like a 13A or a 15A. The 15A has dual active 12-inch subs.
Mm-hmm.
What is an 8 or a 10-inch sub going to do for that? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. All you're doing is reinforcing the mid-range. So I think this is a thing that a lot of people run into, is they mistake, and this is something that actually happened at M-Wave last year. They mistake low frequency for distortion. And this happened in the subwoofer comparison, comparing specifically, and this is nothing against one of the companies, and I won't even mention the name because that sub is not designed for this, but they were put up against the JTR RS1. And people were thinking, man, that JTR sounds like it's got distortion. And so what ended up happening is I put pass filters on the JTR. And when I did that, it sounded exactly the same as all of the other subs. So what was happening is the JTR was reproducing all of the low frequencies that the rest of the subs couldn't do. And people were mistaking that low frequency because the rooms weren't great, right? It wasn't treated for low frequency at all. They were mistaking the low frequency energy as distortion. So, and I was able to very easily recreate that using pass filters. And I think people mistake the inability of a subwoofer to do low frequency as it being musical and fast, when in actuality, it is just inept.
That's a good way to put it. That's interesting. Yeah.
I mean, I think the Rel stuff with their, what is it? The high level connections, the speaker level connections. I think that's cool, But I think you lose a lot of control with that. And you lose the wet base. But I think this year, I don't think it would be too hard. Maybe we should do that. Do a musical sub against one that is not musical and see what people think. Can the sloppy JTR or Ascendo keep up with the quick, tight, and fast Rel in its pretty box?
I don't know, man.
Should we do that? Chat, should we do that? 2 subs wouldn't take that long to set up.
That's all.
No, and I like your idea of adding the high pass filter in. I mean, you know from the measurements that something like that JTR has very low distortion compared to products. So it's not distortion. Your story's accurate. So if you could quickly switch between the high pass filter on or off and move, say, 30 hertz and down on the JTR versus the speed woofer or whatever from the different companies. RSL has a speed woofer that always made me laugh with its name.
Yeah.
And let people kind of learn and experience that for themselves, because they're not going to believe you until they experience themselves.
We'll put it against one of the JTR 4000s or even the Ascendo 32s that will be there, since people think that big subs are slow and sloppy.
There's going to be plenty of them there. Ascendo's bringing
the 32s, 32s.
Let me do this. Are they bringing 2 of them?
Yeah, we're going to stack them.
Nice.
It's going to be awesome. And then JTR's bringing 8, 4,000. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's going to get a little nuts.
And then how many is Stereo Integrity bringing?
We'll just look here. So Stereo Integrity, they're bringing 8 24s. If I back up, if we go to RTJ.
And then if we really want to do this, because my room, the Mad VR Experience Center should be done, we can put it up against the 50 and see what it does. So
RTJ's bringing, I'll show you right here.
Oh, yeah, he is.
These stacks. So that's an 18 on top, 18 on the bottom. These look like 8-inch. These are 10-inch drivers and a big 21 or 23-inch horn. So that's going to be a massive system. That's in a 2-channel setup. Then JTR is going to have 11 212 RTs. That's their towers with dual 12s, 6 Atmos speakers, 8 of the Captivator 4000 ULF. So that's going to be crazy. That's 16 18s in that room.
Now,
RBH, they're bringing a big system.
Bringing their 21 and their flagship towers.
Yeah. So right here's the 21 here. Yep. This big tower right here. This is what Gene De La Sala has in his house.
Aren't those 12s or are they 15s?
I'm wanting to say they're 12s here, and then these I believe are 8s. I think.
And that big old AMT.
Yeah. So that's going to be another big system. And then Ascendo. We talked about that, I think.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. Look at this Joker.
Yeah.
They're bringing the Black Swan. These are the Black Swan BE Proactive Reference Cinema. That's a long stinking name.
It's the same ones that are going in the Mad VR Experience Center, except they've added a second 15. And the reason they do that, you can actually add up to 4. The reason they do that is because the 15-inch woofers can't keep up with the horn. So you have to add the 15s in order to do that.
This is a 16 that I think they just came out with, right?
Yeah, I just got one.
They're bringing that. So that's going to be cool. And then this is their 32-inch. So they're bringing, you said 2 of those?
2 of those.
Yeah, I asked them to give me quantities because somebody was asking about that. They didn't know if this room, maybe they were wondering, is this room?
It's actually 2 rooms. Go back to that.
Oh, okay, let me
go back. Go back.
Just hold up, bro. I got to click it. Here we go. All right, so for here.
So the 6s and the 10s and the 12s, the 16, and I thought I saw an 18 somewhere.
They didn't mention an 18. This is a copy and paste from what.
So all of those are going to be in one room.
Okay.
They're going to be their theater experience.
Okay.
And then the Black Swans and the 32s are going to be in a 2-channel in the Cinemic room.
So on this page here, I'm seeing, so in 2212, that's that small room.
Mhm.
So do they have another room?
Yeah, the Cinemic room, 2205.
2205. Oh, you know what? I didn't even see that. So I need to link that. Awesome. Okay. Sweet. That's going to be cool. Actually, if you don't mind, I'll get that information from you and I'll update the website. Because ideally, what I want you to be able to do is click on that. And then down here, maybe I can group that and say there will be a 7.2 point whatever in this room. And then here's a 2-channel setup in this room. So I need to make sure I update this right here, 2212 and the other one. Cool.
I think if you can catch them on sale, and guys, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the Predators are actually can be decent for the price point, depending on what price point you get them at, the 15-inch rails.
What are we talking? How much are we talking?
I don't know. I've seen them pretty low, but maybe that was when they did the model change, when they went from the previous generation of Predator to the new one. They got pretty low. I don't know what price point they're at now.
1,700 for a 1510.
So
it's like 1,900 for a 1508.
Well, what's I mean, that's not all. What's a Rhythmic?
Rhythmic's going to be around that same ballpark, 1,400, 1,700, like that ballpark.
See, I think those are more
That's not bad.
Reasonable. I had a similar experience, Ryan, with the Magnolia salesperson that was wanting me to do, I think 3 or 4 rail 212 SEs, and I listened to them and they sounded good. I'm not dogging them. But I wasn't listening to them do what?
Musical.
Yeah. And we were playing music. But it was in their showroom and we weren't doing like single digit type content. And I didn't even know about that at the time. But the part that kind of made my alarm bells go off is he started talking about Rel 3D. Are you familiar with this?
What?
Rel 3D.
Oh, where they stack them?
No. So this is a system that I'm curious to hear what you three think about it, because
I think we've talked about this on a podcast before. It's where they have 3 subs and they cover different bandwidth, but they're all the same driver. Is that what you're talking about?
So instead of connecting to the LFE, you connect to the line level also the LFE. And so you would have a subwoofer tower for your left and right, one for your center, and then one in the rear of the room for your surrounds. So it's like, I think the idea is it's like directional bass. It didn't comport with anything that I had ever heard before. And then, subsequently it still doesn't comport.
My problem with it is, how do you manage the high level inputs and stop it from getting double bass?
I don't know. They have a whole page on it, a whole blog article on it.
On Home Theater High Fidelity?
On the rail.net site. Here, I can put it in our private chat.
Jonathan looks like he's reading something.
I'm looking up comparisons between Rhythmic and Rel. I'm still back on that topic, trying to find some actual reviews, like third-party independent reviews of the same product.
I think wasn't the Rel on database? I
just looked. I did not see any Rel product at all on database.
I think Gene's measured it. Well, not Gene, but James.
Well, I was hoping so, but I haven't found it yet.
They have. Let me find it. You guys didn't know you were going to join a stream and just watch people browse the internet, did you?
That wouldn't be the least boring thing on the internet.
Yeah.
No.
For sure.
We were watching that Twitch stream, and me and Michael, and we're like, what is going on?
What are they doing, man? They were just walking outside doing a little live stream. Dude had his shirt off, big old belly.
I shall share. Hold on.
This is different.
Window,
and especially on TikTok now, they've got the I don't even know what they call them now, but basically like they're NPCs. So that's something else.
So there's the
At least
rel.
this is relevant.
I don't know. Here's the burst test.
So yeah, so once you get down to wow. So look at that. Even at 31 hertz, you're at 108.
Well, let's compare it.
Hold up, Bubba. Then drops down to 101. So you've lost 9 dB of output in just literally
reviews.
That's at 30 something hertz.
Well, let's look at this guy. Oh, so bad they don't even have measurements.
It might just be a preview because first impression.
Yeah, it's not out yet.
Not a review.
It's coming. It's just not out yet. So let's compare it to the RTJ sub 18.
I mean, wait a second. You had rel pulled up from Audioholics, right?
Yeah, I'm still on Audioholics.
So let me give you another link to compare. All right, I'm gonna send you a private chat. Okay. Grab it from there and put them side by side if you would.
It's probably gonna be hard. I don't think you can do it in
if he just shares his screen instead of a browser, it'll let you do side by side.
Yeah, actually, I guess he's doing that now.
Hold on.
And it's kind of near the bottom of the charts that look like Windows 3.11, like really old looking charts.
All right, so we got that. Let's do this. Present, stop sharing, present, share screen, entire screen, this one. So I've actually got 3. So here's this is the RTJ sub 18, and then the rhythmic will be on the far right.
Okay. You're going to have to read some of that because it's probably pretty small, especially if people are looking on their mobile devices.
Mm-hmm. So
I can see it on my monitor.
That actually doesn't make a lot of sense.
So their normal measurements are at 2 meters. So you're looking at the box on the right-hand side. Because the 2 on the left are at 2 meters. It says it in the text right below the charts.
Oh.
So you got to look at the far right row on the right-hand side for the FB. Also, look at the frequencies. They're not standardized across there. You got 16 on the top row, 10 in the middle on top row, 20 on the right.
Yeah, I'm looking at the rhythmic in comparison to the RTJ.
So just look at the 20, for instance.
So 20 on the rel is 95, 20 on the RTJ is 106, and 20 on the rhythmic is 107.
Mm-hmm. And the RTJ is sealed, right? And the rhythmic is ported. So you're going to get
I didn't realize the rhythmic was
10 dB more, 6 dB more at port 2, depending on the design.
Well, that makes sense.
The sealed should catch back up at mid-band bass usually.
Yeah.
So you're going to see them kind of being more in line.
But in the low end, you get the rel is limited to 16 hertz. Usually when he stops, it's because you're limited on distortion, or it just falls off to the point that it's not even worth measuring. And it's at 88, but the RTJ is at 100 at 16. And then the rhythmic, because it's ported, it's not even down there.
I think that rhythmic does that. I just think this is an older test because that's an older sub. So he might not have had that same.
It does.
It does. Tuned to around, I don't remember, 14 or 16 hertz. It's been a long time since I've looked at this that closely, but it should be doing, I think it should be doing 16 hertz.
Yeah.
Does it, I'll try to find it in here while you're looking too.
It will. You can see from the frequency response and the compression sweep that you can get it down to 16 maximum output.
And it has different port tunes as well. The rhythmic does. Like you can plug a port and get a different response. Database has that information too. But it's better to have it apples to apples if you could. It's just that it's such an old review from Audioholics. It's probably not fair there either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is an old review.
So what about 2? Here's a comment from Oops, sorry. Says not a real fan, but I think you're comparing apples and oranges here. The Predators, their home theater line.
You're saying, oops, sorry. Are you saying that their other line gets lower?
I think that's what he's trying to say.
Because I can guarantee that it doesn't.
Well, but I mean, that's just, like I said, REL subwoofer. I'll look up the Predator and see. Powered subwoofers. All right, carbon fiber. Where's the Predator? All right, so let's say the 1510 Predator. Pull it up. All right, let's look at the specs. $1,700, and then their specs down here. So frequency, they're down 6 dB at 20 hertz.
What is
the Predator?
Okay. So what's the 212 do?
REL 212 SE. Just continued.
Down 16 at 18 hertz. Or down 6 at 18 hertz.
Okay.
So not that much different.
It actually supposedly that gets lower than the home theater. Because home theater is 20.
By 2 hertz?
Mm-hmm.
I mean...
No, but what I'm saying is it's actually the opposite. The Predator is supposed to be for home theater, but it doesn't even go as low as the 212. If you said it goes down to what? You said to 18?
Yeah, I agree with you, but that makes sense because the 212 is more surface area.
Right, but I'm just saying, I'm referring to the comment. The comment is like, hey, you're not comparing apples to apples because this one over here is for home theater, but it doesn't even perform as good as the 212 HT that is audiophile.
You got to know before you make those you got to know what SPLs are capable of, though.
Well, and oops, sorry.
So and I'm just pulling up their website.
He just made another comment. The goal of the RELs is not output at the lowest probable. Then what is the goal? And how is the REL going to be different than another sub? Because sound reproduction is sound reproduction, and to do it correctly is to do it correctly. There is no, somebody doing it potentially a different way that is better. I mean, you're either going to do it right or you're not. So I can tell you the best sub that I've ever heard, the best sub I've ever heard, bar none, is Ascendo's the 50. And it is enormous. But the reason it is so good is because it doesn't move. Because it is enormous.
Any distortion.
And I could say that it is the fast, if we want to talk about speed, it is the fastest sub really out there. Because the driver doesn't have to move. You look at it and it's going down to like absurd levels in output and frequency range. And you're like, is this thing even on? And your windows are like brr, 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 from the output that it's doing. So I think if you're going to do it right, you're either going to do it right or something's going to be wrong and it's going to sound sloppy.
I know you kind of say that tongue in cheek, but I don't even like to give that fastest, slowest stuff discussion because it's just such a wrong concept. Yeah. I know you're just teasing with it, but just to be clear,
sure.
It's that whole thing that we talked about before, where if it's fastest, then you're at a higher frequency because a hertz is one cycle in and out, one cycle back to middle.
Replicate the sound at any given level, but you're either going to replicate the sound or you're not. And it's either going to be smooth and consistent without distortion or it's not. Like there is a science behind this. It's either going to be how it should or it's not. So if you look at something like, I'm going to go back to JTR because JTR has been measured all over the place with their low frequency stuff. And you can go look at the Clipple data on the Ascendo stuff, which they actively publish, or the Clipple data on Per Listen, or any of these objectively given companies. They're not hiding behind anything, and they will graciously show you what their subs are doing. Is REL doing that? No. Could I get REL to go to M-Wave? We've asked them. They're not going to come. And I don't know why that is, but if you got nothing to hide, come show it. Publish your data. Allow people to publish your data. But a lot of the companies that don't allow others to do that, I'll get off my soapbox.
So he says, this probably be the last part on this, and then we'll jump to some other questions. He says, I don't disagree, but I would argue that a music-only listener, so somebody that primarily listens to like 2-channel music, wouldn't care about a sub 30 hertz. So they may want a nice looking sub with no DSP for mid-level listening.
I don't agree with that either.
Mm-hmm.
Hi-Fi and we don't agree. If I have a subwoofer and I want to play an organ note that goes down to 14 hertz or whatnot, why would I not want to reproduce that? I want to be able to feel it. If I have a 30 hertz sub that won't do that, I've cut off some of my options I can listen to. I had an attendee come over to my house not that long ago. He's like, hey, I want to pull up this organ track. I want to hear how this sounds. It's the deepest digging organ in the entire world. This track is recorded very hi-fi. I just want to hear it. If I had a music sub for the same cost that I could get a deep diving sub and it wouldn't do it, then that would be disappointing. For that's not something I care about, but something he might care about. So why not have the option?
Not only that, but we perceive lower frequencies at a different level than we perceive higher frequencies. So a lot of times your house curve looks like this. Is it going the right way? Like with the low frequency, is it going the right way?
You're diving off on the left side, it'd be the other way, but yeah, point made.
That way.
Yeah.
Okay. Look like I'm dabbing, but anyway, going this way. So if your sub is running into compression at those lower frequencies, right? And you're playing at X volume, but now you're running into compression when you're getting into lower frequencies because you're pushing it to its limit and you're at its -6 or its -3. You're not even hearing the audio how it's supposed to be reproduced. So if you're pushing equipment, speakers or subs to their limits, you're probably not reproducing things because you're running into compression, distortion, and a bunch of other stuff, how they should be heard. So it's really important, whether you are going to be listening to those things or not, that you get equipment that is more than capable of what you're trying to do so that you don't encounter those things.
Because, and we're talking top of the line. I want to stir back to a comment that was posted in here, and I don't know if I'll even be able to find it real quick, but somebody was saying like, hey, you guys are being too critical of gear. We're not. We're not trying to do that. There's plenty of room for people to have whatever gear they have. We're saying if you're going to spend big money, like the stuff we're talking about is big money. There's nothing wrong. If you care about the cabinet more than you care about the sound, that's your thing. Do your thing.
Yeah.
I'm talking about from a point that I'm not that way. I care about the performance more than the look. So if I'm going to spend this much money and it has a pretty cabinet but doesn't have the performance, I'm just saying I'd rather have the performance. And there's not, we're not pushing one type of sub. There's multiple ways to get there. We're saying that doesn't make any sense to knock off the performance thing. Go listen to Deadmau5 or, the KX5 album in Dolby Atmos with a 30 hertz pro audio tune sub or like a 40 hertz sub, something like that. That's considered musical pro audio users all the time. And then go listen to it for a full range capable sub. And the difference will be stark. And, you're just missing that. If you can only produce 30 hertz and up, you're just missing all the 20 hertz content, all the 15 hertz content. The music has it too. It's not just movies. It's not just cinema. Music has it too. It depends on the type of music you like. Sure. But certainly there's like synth drums and synth bass and stuff that's down there. That's a lot of fun, man. I mean, just a lot of fun.
And at the end of the day, I mean, you do have to figure out what works best for you. And we're not going to tell you that, that a rel sub or any other sub is not a good fit for you, because you got to figure that out. You got to figure out what's important to you. If it's not single digits, that's fine. But like Jonathan said, and I just shared this in the chat, once I experienced single digits, my smile got bigger. I'll be honest with you, because like Jonathan said, that's just a fun aspect of home theater that I had never experienced.
And I don't think most people have.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly over the years that we've been doing this, people come over and you'll play like a 16 hertz test tone for them and their chest starts activating. It's kind of hard to breathe. The gel in your eyes moving. You're like, holy smokes. I didn't know that was a thing. I mean, we talked about that a little bit last week. Like this is like a next tier, right? You just, you haven't experienced until you've experienced it. And then once you experience, you're like, why would I not want that? I mean, like, if it's an option, if it's on the table, why would I discard it? That's all.
I want to add that I agree when people are talking about finding the right sub for the right application. I have 4 18-inch subs in my home theater, most of which are hidden. So you don't even see them. So as far as the eyesore thing, doesn't matter to me what they look like. They're hidden behind the screen. The other 4 are hidden behind chairs. So in that application, I could care less what they look like. All I care is how they perform. Now, in my living room, I have a single Martin Logan 16-inch. I don't even know the part number. It's like not important to me. It's just something to kind of fill in some of that bass. And I got it because it's small. It's, pretty attractive. It's not meant to shake the house down. It's just meant to kind of give an assist in the living room.
Sure.
And then in like bedrooms, I rarely watch TV in any bedrooms, but in some of them, there's no sub at all. And so it's just a matter of application. I think the thing with me and Rail, I don't think that the Rail is a bad sounding sub. I don't think it's like terrible or anything. I just feel like you have other options that are also attractive for less money. And so, if you like it, you like it, but it doesn't mean it's terrible. It just, there may be better options out there that save you a few bucks.
And that dig a little bit deeper and possibly have more output on top of that.
Yeah.
And just because you don't, I know somebody mentioned, there are certain people that don't crank it to reference. They don't want the whole, all their windows shaking and their chest cavity imploding because of the bass pressure in your room. But I think you can still enjoy a subwoofer that offers those lower frequencies, that offers that low distortion, even at normal volume.
Well, let's talk about those volumes though too, because without room gain, that's at 2 meters, and if you double that distance, which is the typical distance for people to the main listening position, you're losing another 6 dB. So now you're having to go above that in order to get to that same locale for audio. So that's something else that people. And granted, I'm not including room gain here, but that's something else that you have to consider. Is that you got to go above and beyond the SPL that you're wanting your seat, because it's going to fall off as that sound has to traverse.
Yeah, this is the comment specifically. I found it here. So, Chester, we're not belittling anyone's system. That's not our point. We're just simply saying, like, if you're charting a new system together, green grass, make sure that you're trying to get a full range reproduction, because there's stuff in there that just people don't know about. You don't know what you don't know. You don't know if you haven't heard it or experienced it. And in my experience, when people are like clamoring about like 30 hertz is good enough, it's because they probably haven't experienced different. And the exception would be like Rusty was talking about. In the living room, I got an 8-inch subwoofer. That's not my main system. I don't really care. That thing probably can't dig below 40 hertz. That's fine. I don't care about that. If I want to watch a movie, I want to come down here. The guy that came over to visit my theater, he didn't ask me to listen to it in the living room. He wanted to hear it in the theater, So like that space, whatever it is, wherever it is.
So just to clarify, Chester says that wasn't directed.
I don't think he was talking.
But I think it's still good that we clarify, because we're not saying that people
100%.
need to have this. I mean, a big part of this is all 4 of us been in this space for a very long time. We've assembled gear over a long time, and we've made, as we talked about earlier, a lot of mistakes. So all we're trying to do is, if somebody is starting from a bare bones and is wanting to try and reproduce things or do things, we're just trying to provide advice so people don't make the same mistakes that we did. There's no sense in, somebody else having a car wreck just because we did. Learn from us.
Learn from our mistakes.
And go from there. Don't watch the car wreck and then join in.
And even in regards to this, and again, I'm not trying to push on Rail or push against them or anything, but I'd be curious to put, whether it's Rail or whoever, again, some people kind of classify certain subwoofers as, they're more musical. I just really, I wonder, I really, really do. Like, if we were to put you in a blind test and put the musical sub against a non-musical sub, whatever.
I'm doing it.
Whatever the heck.
It would be a good test.
I'm going to do it.
It would be a good educational thing.
I would really encourage you to at least try that, because it's easy for us to, let's just face it. That's part of the marketing of certain brands. Like, these are musical, and in my opinion, maybe that's an excuse on why they don't perform certain things, certain aspects, maybe low end extension or output, because the marketing says, hey, we're musical and that's what we're focusing on. So I would just encourage you to do that. Yeah, you know, like, what is musical? I mean, I know we throw these terms around, and again, this is just good, healthy conversation. I'm not trying to bash you. I'm not trying to criticize you in any way, shape, or form. That's not the purpose of this discussion. It's really just to challenge our thinking. Like, you know, do we really hear this, or is this what we've been told, or is this what our brain is telling us we're hearing?
So what? Anyone can do this that lives next to a Best Buy, but what are you comparing that to?
Yeah,
I mean,
you'd have no idea if they set that up right at
And
Best
are you
Buy.
comparing it to like a Def Tech sub? Nothing against Def Tech, but I don't think that's.
I think it's probably safe to say that Best Buy in their A/B comparisons, they are not even level matching these.
No.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
You don't know what the dials are on the back of the subwoofer for the crossover settings or anything.
That's
the
that's
phase, all
important.
that stuff.
All right,
Yeah,
where
they
can
don't
I
have to not
They're
see
dialed in the same? Yeah.
for a sub? Where can I get one?
Cool. All right. Well, I think we beat that dead horse for a while.
Questions.
Yeah,
I just wanted to show
let's do
this one real quick too.
Okay, what is it?
Um,
Go ahead and read it.
said you guys heavily support the beginner, but you also cater to the more advanced users. And I think, yes, there's a starting point and then there's a progression. And so it's okay to start somewhere. I mean,
Yeah,
disease.
100%.
yeah, I mean, that's, nobody's saying you shouldn't. And there's nothing wrong with starting with something basic, and you
100%.
learn.
Yeah. And I think going back to Jonathan's, he was talking about a price point. If you're spending $4,500, you're probably well beyond beginner as far as like budget friendly. I mean, your
Performance should be well beyond beginner
Yes.
at that. Yeah.
Yes. So you're looking for something that really should have, I mean, for $4,500, there's a lot of amazing options out there. There really, really is. And so that's all we're challenging you to do. Just look at those.
Was
So,
it
yeah.
was a Rel with dual 12s? Was that 4,500? Is that what it was? Or what was
It was
4,500?
close to that.
Let me see. Rel.
It's discontinued now.
Yeah.
They heard our
200
live stream and just
SPs.
like killed it.
It's over, guys.
It's
Okay,
like,
so the MSRP on that was $4,200 from what
That
I'm
sounds
seeing.
about right.
yeah.
So pretty close to what you're saying. A little bit over 4,000. So again, not a budget subwoofer, you know. I mean, nowadays you can get, man, I hate to even mention the brand, but it just, like, for $4,500, you can get one that just destroys that. So again,
Every metric, yes.
yeah. So that's all we're saying, guys. And we're just talking pure measurements, you know, and performance. So all right, cool. I think we've, like I said, good discussion, man. I appreciate it.
That was definitely a lively discussion. That was fun.
Well, I can buy the Rel Acoustics S510 subwoofer from Amazon. So
Somebody might be willing to bring one.
yeah. Anybody want
I
to
mean,
bring one?
I mean, somebody that's coming to M-Wave, they're willing to bring one.
So
That'd be awesome.
here's something else you need to know about the four of us is that if we do this blind and we all come to really like the Rel, we will eat our words.
Yeah, I'll be glad to share it here. It's
No
not about us being right.
Question.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us has any problem with admitting.
Yeah.
when
I've got no, what do they
we're
say? I've
wrong.
got no dog in the race. I mean, I
Dog
could
in the
care
fight.
less.
I think it's
Whatever.
dog in the fight and horse in the race.
I'm gonna make up my own analogies. Thank you very much.
Mixed metaphors.
Mercy. All right, cool. Let's jump into
And,
these.
hey, and one thing before we switch to that,
Okay.
same
I'll come
topic.
Yes.
This is good. This is good, right?
Yeah, okay.
And it's not even if you can't if you can't reach, fine, or if you have subs that can reach it and your room's large. Either way, the
awesome.
transducers really can fill in that bottom end,
I
and
think
it
it's
is
a
a
great
cheaper alternative
solution.
than just stacking up subs. So that's good comment.
Agree.
So Don says I'm running 4 Rel 1508 stacked.
We're gonna stay on this.
But I
subject
think
all
we
night.
all thought that for the price point, I mean, $1,700 for a 15-inch isn't actually that bad in comparison to other offerings.
Yeah.
In the 1508s, if I remember right, when the 1510 came out, there was significant discounts to where you could get a 1508 for like under $1,000, which was, I mean, that's a no-brainer in a lot of situations. But we'll do this. I gotta I'll reach out to NFM and see if they'll let us use a rel.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah.
If not, I'll have to buy one and we'll see what we can do. But I think that would be
They
that
may
needs
not
to
let
happen.
you though.
I'll bring my white van. You can sell it afterwards.
Oh my golly. Oh man.
We'll have to film it out in the parking lot. Rusty handing me a
Mhm.
subwoofer from a white van.
Like a bad drug deal.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll put a pass filter on them. Absolutely.
Okay. All right, let's jump to it. We got lots of questions here. Let me hit the super chats real quick. So, Nicholas, appreciate the $8 super chat. The worst purchase is buying speakers and subs incapable of reference peaks, unaware of sensitivity and dynamic range, resulting in complete upgrades.
Subconsciously, Nicholas, you just wanted to do it again.
I love it.
I think we've all done that though, made purchases and then immediately gone, well,
Yeah.
guess I'm buying something else.
Didn't quite live up to my
Not that it was a bad decision. It was just you learned something after you made that purchasing decision that made the previous decision not great.
And think about it, true. Like in life, we tend to learn the most from our mistakes more than our failures. I think that applies to a lot of areas, especially in home theater. High Finance, appreciate the $10 super chat. Wish I found this home theater community sooner. Appreciate that, man. In 2018, I got. So in other words, you got had by Magnolia. Wasted $1,000 on various Audio Quest cables. Save your wallets. Another bad purchase was my first SB13 Ultra. Slippery slope after that. Oh, I love it, man.
Look at this room. That looks like a fun room. I like that kind of light. That looks like it's got that background light. Maybe is it switching colors with the screen and stuff?
Yeah. Where it's
Or
tied
just
into the
ambient.
colors.
Perhaps. Maybe it's just ambient since the screen light with blue TV, but that looks nice.
I don't think buying certain cables for the idea that you're going to hear a pronounced difference. No,
Yeah.
but I think if you want things
Sure.
that look
On what
cool,
cables you want.
audio
100%.
jewelry,
Mhm.
got to try and find the positives, man. I'm trying to help you out.
But I'm okay with that too, and I've always claimed that. It's like, look, if you've got, I get it. People use the analogy, if you're buying a Bugatti, you're not going to buy, ceramic brakes or tires at Walmart kind of thing. It's like you're going to buy premium quality brakes to go along with it. I get that, but probably the difference there is there's a performance increase in buying the premium brakes over stock brakes or cheap brakes. But if you just want something to look cool, hey, go for it, man. Because there's some really cool cables out there.
Inline. Go ahead. You got it.
What were you going to say?
Oh, the High Finance 343 had another comment there saying no one's going to run rel and supplement tactile transducers. Laughing. Why not? Why not? I'm curious. Why not?
Yeah.
The mindset.
It's almost like is that because maybe transducers are beneath rel? You know what I mean? Like you said, the mindset there.
Musical.
I
They're
just
not
don't think they
fidelity?
probably felt transducers that are properly integrated then, because there's a lot of fun with those. Like,
Yeah.
Why not? I would. I mean, if I had rel or any subwoofer, I'm having transducers.
Chris,
you-
man,
you
stop
know.
busting my chops, man. He says, I never saw Walmart sell brakes. I worked at Walmart Automotive.
They definitely sell brakes.
Follow my
So-
logic, man. Dude, I don't work on cars. That's why my car analogies suck, but you get my drift.
I understand the jewelry analogy, but who's looking at their cables? Like, to me, the perfect cables are the ones you never see. Like, shouldn't they be concealed?
There's
The
a lot
best
of
thing
guys
about
that like
Audio
to
Quest
them all.
cables is that you can put the fancy boxes on your shelves to let everybody know.
Mhm.
The 2-channel guys a lot of times show their cables and their amps and everything. It's all kind
They
of
do look really good.
Okay.
It's part of the vibe.
So,
I
here's-
get that. That's cool.
I'm going
I
to
didn't know
clarify.
that.
Mhm.
I'm not hating on the build quality of the cable. I'm hating on the methodology or the mindset of that you're going to hear some
Yeah.
amazing transformation of
I think it's the marketing that frustrates.
yes. So I do think Audio Quest makes a solid, well-built cable that looks really good. Like really good in a lot of these situations. I just don't look at my cables.
Well, I saw this is this related cable quality. I saw an episode of Adam Savage, formerly of Mythbusters, a video he did recently. And he had a few people that they took a new Apple cable. It's like $120. I think it's Thunderbolt 4 cable, and they put it under I think it was a CT scan where they did. I think it was CT, and did like a really deep analysis, really cool imaging software. And then they took some Amazon cables and some other, lesser price cables, and they went through in a very scientific, thank you, scientific of showing exactly what made that cable different and why it cost what it cost. And you can still argue whether it's, worth it or not. I'm going to use Brian's air quotes, whether it's worth it or not, but it's not just markup. It's not only markup. There are real differences in these cables and real differences in capabilities. So we're not talking about that. We're talking, we know HDMI cables there is a different, cost per performance, but that doesn't mean you cross a threshold somewhere where it just becomes
there is to a point
luxury.
There are crap cables and there's good cables. You're not going to get something that's amazing, but there is benefits.
I like challenging that one. That's always fun. I'm a zeros and ones man. It either works or it doesn't.
But that's not how HDMI works.
Kind of does.
You're getting, because there's going to be fall off of the signal voltages and buses and all kinds of different things.
Correct. So it either works or it doesn't. It either hits or it doesn't.
No.
Yeah.
Because there's air correction on the receiving side. Right. So
can one have better colors than the other?
I didn't say that.
No, I didn't say you did. I'm asking you a question.
But there can absolutely be HDMI artifacts.
Well, a lot of
created by a cable.
So a lot of what they were talking about, the technology that goes into these cables, and again, this is Thunderbolt, not HDMI, but it's the protection that goes into protecting the signal from outside interference. And there are real differences in the higher, a higher quality cable. So it doesn't give you better colors if you have a stable signal, but one is more resistant to outside interference than the other. So it will be maybe more reliable, but a lot of that depends on your environment. What type of outside interference are you dealing with?
So like digital, you're not going to move better than the source. It's not going to happen. But my point is that there are certain cables that are more resistant to issues than potentially others. Because we run into this all the time with Mad VR, and it's usually the cable.
Drew, back to yours. Appreciate it, man. $10 super chat. Wondering if you guys run your surround or Atmos speakers hot. I've read or heard our hearing is not great with surrounds. Well, think about it. That makes sense because our ears are faced forward, not backwards. And it's not great with sounds behind or maybe above us and don't hear like a measurement mic. Interesting. So, because our ears don't hear as much detail from behind us or above us, this question is, should you bump those up a little bit instead of being level matched across the board? What are your thoughts on that, fellas?
I don't. I run mine all at 75 across the board, like when I'm doing the level matching. What do you guys do?
Mine are all level match. I even made a video on it.
I level match and then I bump my rears up about 3 dB.
Okay. And that's preference.
It's subjective.
Yeah. And I think I've always said that. It's like, to me, level match it, listen to it. And then honestly, there are some people that like to bump their center channel up a couple dB or their Atmos because they want to hear more of it. Or just realize when you start changing that now, and from my experience, you're starting to draw attention to those speakers. To me, the idea and the concept that you want to strive for is to have just a really cohesive sound from Atmos, front LCR, your surround back. All of it should be blended very, very well so that your brain doesn't go, oh man, that was a really cool Atmos sound. You know what I'm saying? Or man, did you hear that coming from that back left speaker? to me, as soon as you do that, now you've been pulled out of that movie experience or out of that musical experience, and it's kind of broken the purpose of what that system was designed to do. So I like to have mine as balanced. Now my subwoofers are a little hot, and of course we've shared that many times. We're all on different levels of hotness on our subs. But again, it really is a lot of its preference. So if you run yours a little bit hot, just try it. See if you like it. Is it a distraction? If it's not a distraction, then, and you like it, then go for it. I just wouldn't go too crazy with it, especially if you're getting in the plus on your AVR, because that you'll start introducing some distortion there possibly, or even clipping.
Yeah, I wanted to add too that when I set my levels, I'm setting it at the center of the room of 4 chairs, so there's like no headrest interference there.
Okay.
And then, and I also do it with the chairs fully reclined. And so when you put the chairs up and you put the headrest up and you're sitting in kind of like a semi-reclined position, I think that's part of why. And Jonathan demonstrated this last year in his experience. It does block out a fair amount of sound. So that's why I like to bump it just a little bit to kind of bring that back, that what's being blocked.
Sure. So one thing that I do with mine is when I calibrate how I typically am seated, which is always reclined. Like I never listen and watch a movie with my chair straight up. And so I always just recline it, set it where my ears would be. And so that is unobstructed from anything. So you might, if you do that in your theater room, maybe that would be a suggestion, is go ahead and recline your seats when you're calibrating.
And I did that. It's based off of some of the recommendations for the Dirac calibration to, fully recline your chairs and try to stay out of the way. But I hear you.
Yeah.
I think there's also a little bit of change that happens too if you listen to only cinematic or if you listen to like spatial audio music. As I've noticed, probably over the last, I don't know, there was a time in my home theater, especially years ago, where I used to bump the surrounds and the Atmos speakers a little bit. But as you start listening to more varied content, especially like the spatial audio music stuff, there's already sometimes things coming from different speakers that's programmed there. And if you have those speakers bumped, then it's distracting. I think
throws it off, right?
Yeah, as Michael was saying, in my opinion, in my experience, but it probably a lot depends on the room and the chair backs and all that kind of stuff. So
sure. Home Theater Denmark, appreciate the 20 Denmark. I don't know the currency there. Just wanted to wish everybody an awesome Denmarkian. Appreciate that, mate. What's that?
I'm just being a dummy.
I don't know what it is. So appreciate the warm wishes, man. We're excited. For those of you that don't know, we've got an event coming up June 21st through the 23rd. Love to have you out. It's really a home theater show. We've got lots of great brands that are already signed up. Lots of cool things that we're going to be doing there. So check out all the details on the website, midwestavexperience.com. Appreciate the wishes, man. Bob, appreciate the $2 super chat. How many movies have infrasonic sounds? So we're talking about those really low frequencies. Jonathan, are there only a few out there, or what's the deal with that?
There's quite a lot, and there's not as many as we wish there were. But there's a list. I'll see if I can put it in chat here at both AVS forum and database, the forums, where people have mapped those out and kind of listed like objectively the best ones, which ones have the lowest bass design in it, the bass mixing. So I'll try to find a couple of those links and stick them in chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're unfortunately not as common as you'd hope. And a lot of the reason is because when they mix them for a theater, like a commercial theater, those subwoofers can A, not handle those low frequencies, and B, it actually just disturbs the neighbors through the room because the lower frequencies will travel through walls more easily. So they want to rip it out for two reasons. They want to rip it out so that the subs don't make bad noises if they're playing at reference with those, 30 hertz tuned subs. And also they're not disturbing the room next door. So that unfortunately makes it into the home mix a lot of times. Not always, but a lot of times there's a filter like intentionally put on there. So then you get into the bass EQ discussion where BEQ is, and Rusty can probably talk to this. He uses it on his monoprice or has in the past, HTTP1, where it counteracts the filter that they put it on the Blu-ray, and then you can get it back to what it should be with just no roll off at all.
Yeah. I find from just personal experience that most action movies have quite a bit of sub 30 frequency infrasonic, and well, I guess 30 or 20. I do like the bass EQ. It doesn't create anything that didn't exist already. It just bumps those levels, somewhat intelligently, PEQs those low frequencies back up to where I'm not sure how to say it, but basically where they were or should have been. And as Jonathan mentioned, there's a lot of reasons why when they do the mix, for whether it's for streaming or for just general Blu-ray release, where they will lower those levels. So, it bumps them back up. And then if you have the equipment to reproduce it, then you'll notice, like, you feel them.
Put it in chat. I think it'll stick because I posted this to you guys. I didn't mean to, but I did. So you'll see the database link in there with a lot of good objective data. And there's another one at AVS Form. I'll try to find that one as well and post it.
Cool, man. Appreciate it. Hi, Finance. Appreciate the $10 super chat. Follow up. Audio Quest markets quality. However, the dog chewed one of the parts and it exposed a solid core with a soldered extension because they had clipped it too short. That wasn't for me. Unacceptable. Interesting. All right.
I think that could be found at virtually any company, though. You're going to have a bad egg like my couch getting dropped off the truck.
Exactly. All right. So we have a bunch, and we're going to try to run through. We may not get to all these tonight, to be honest with you.
I'm not starring anymore.
Yeah, there's like 30. Yeah, there are 30. That's a lot. Always pushing. Do you guys ever mess with these Class D Chinese amps all over the YouTube world? Thought it might be a topic of interest. Also watched Sicario. That's a cool movie on my 7.2.4, and that has tons of height and surrounds. Yeah, it does. So Chinese Class D amplifiers.
I think there's a bunch of that stuff, no matter what type of equipment you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Not just in the audio world. I mean, look at Amazon.
I imagine some of them are good and some of them aren't, So
some of them are marketing BS, some of them aren't.
Yeah, I don't have any experience with them. Most of the stuff that I've had is just kind of mainstream stuff.
I think for a lot of this stuff, I would buy from brands that you recognize or that you can read things about on AVS forums.
Yeah, warranty and then even servicing. That's going to be
Don't be a trailblazer and try and say, oh, I'm going to save a few dollars and see how this plays out, because you get a bad amp, it could take more than itself out with it.
Yeah. Bruce says, what is your opinion concerning Disney not selling physical media anymore? I'm so upset. What happened? They are only interested in streaming services now. Are other studios going to do the same or go the same route?
Money.
Follow the trail.
I don't even know if I knew that. Disney's not releasing any more content on physical media. That seems kind of wild to me. I mean, they had that whole cadence where they would release Cinderella for, 2 years and then go on back into the vault for 2 years and they wouldn't sell it. They're not doing that anymore, huh?
Yeah, so here's one. 7 months ago, some people wonder why Disney ceased physical media releases in Australia.
No, here's one from February 2020. Disney outsourcing Blu-ray and DVD business to Sony. So I don't think they're getting out. They're outsourcing to Sony. They're not doing it directly anymore.
Okay.
At least that's what the Hollywood Reporter said on February 20th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Toroya says the same thing. Disney didn't stop selling. They just outsourced distribution.
Yeah, they're going to a licensing model with Sony. And Sony, I mean, sometimes that's a better decision because methods of scale, right? If you can get to a scale, everything gets cheaper.
I love this comment right here. Let me back up. Here we go. Sony would do a much better job with the disc. Disney has at mouse. A lot of times they kind of neuter the sound, unfortunately. Zach says, any ideas experience with Marantz processor suddenly not outputting any video signal? He's got an AV7703, switch cables, sources, unplug the power, doing a quick internet search, but doesn't look good.
Did you try both of the video outs? Or just one?
See if one of them failed.
There is a way to hard reset your 7703. If you web search that, that might be worth trying at this point in the game. It'll reset everything to factory, and if it doesn't come back then, you probably got a failed HDMI board or something at that point.
Yep.
Hopefully not, man. Ryan B. Hey guys, Anthem AVM 90 or Marantz AV10?
Audioholics just had a video come out on that just like in the last recent while.
They reviewed the 90, and I just got the AVM 70 hooked up. Been using that for 2 weeks now. So ran into a couple little quirks. Not anything major, but definitely.
They mentioned that in the Audioholics review. I listened to it this morning. They said that the firmware was a little more solid on the Marantz, which we have talked about in the past. It's still the case.
Yep.
Yeah.
But they both liked both those guys, Gene and who was the other guy? I don't remember his name. I don't even think I recognized him. But
Theo was in
Theo.
the chat.
That's right. Theo's correct.
Yeah, he was in the chat earlier.
They both liked it. I think Theo liked the AV90 a little better, and Gene liked the Marantz AV10 a little better, and they both had their reasons. Oh,
there he is.
Those are both top of the line receivers as far as measurements. And
Theo. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. So yeah,
I recognize that.
Definitely go check out the review there. I'll have my review hopefully within the next maybe week or two. I'll do the AVM 70. Anthem's issues tend to have more to do with HDMI handshake issues than anything with the audio.
This is correct.
Says, both are excellent. We took our sides. I love it. That's cool, man.
I think
that's great.
It depends on what type of buyer you are. Marantz, in my eyes, is just going to be a little bit more stable and plug and play than the AVM 90. But the AVM 90, it's all about compromise, may deliver more granular customizability as far as calibration and room EQ.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. All right. Brian, appreciate the $5 super chat. How to deal with high cathedral ceilings and get Atmos sound, not reasonable to ceiling mount, high front back or down firing bookshelves maybe? So with cathedral ceilings, is that where they're, or is that a vaulted ceiling? Or is that the same thing?
I thought it was the same thing.
Okay. So when it's basically you don't have a flat surface, so he's got really high pitch. So the hard part about that is if you put in ceiling speakers, those are going to be angled at some funky angles usually. So that is a challenge. Some people will hang and have hung bookshelf speakers like on a mount so they can aim those and kind of point those. It's just kind of, it can be difficult to be honest with you.
Pendants.
What's that?
Pendants.
Oh, pendants. Yeah.
Pendant speakers.
So those would hang straight down. Interesting. You don't see many of those. Like who makes those?
There's not a lot of them. And
I was like,
I don't think they'll be hugely capable.
A
lot of times they're in more commercial.
Yeah, that's usually where I see them.
I think your best solution is going to be like a bookshelf or an on-wall speaker on a ceiling mount that you can aim.
Yeah. I would encourage you if you're going to mount it on the ceiling. I mounted mine on the ceiling, but we made a custom bracket for it because it's got 4 keyholes in the back. Most speakers aren't going to have that. Sometimes your speakers will have a threaded insert, which is really good. So hopefully they have that, and that'll make it a little bit easier on the install. Bob, appreciate the $2 super chat. Super chat. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. Speaking of amps, NAD Purify versus Buckeye Purify. I'm not familiar with either.
I think NAD has the Egentok Purify modules. I don't think you're going to notice a difference. I don't think you'd notice a difference with really any solid amplifier. The benefit to the Purifies on the Buckeyes, depending on which module you go with, you can get more out of them. You can get more power.
Okay.
But I don't think there's a wrong way.
The NAD is substantially higher, if I recall.
Price?
Price-wise?
Yes.
Like a lot.
Yes.
But, I mean, if you look at the Purify relative to, what's the other?
HypeX?
The HypeX, yeah. And the HypeX Plus, it's like it's the next tier above that. I don't know. I'd have a hard time imagining that when you go from like excellent you're going from excellent to excellenter.
It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Like I went Purify because my Martin Logans would eat amps for breakfast, which was, we found out. So the Purifies were notorious for being able to handle virtually any load, and they have a linear power. So you're really not going to get more distortion or anything as the power increases. I think it actually goes down. Depends on what you need. Purifies are awesome. HypeX is awesome. I don't think you go wrong with either one.
Yeah, and if I know Dylan's going to be on the live stream here. I'm not sure if it's been scheduled exactly, but he wants to do kind of a Q&A answering those kind of questions, right?
Yep. He'll be at M-Wave too.
Yep. Yeah, he's a great dude too, man. Very, very knowledgeable. So yes, we're looking at getting him scheduled on here. We were going to schedule him, I think, maybe even this week, but then we're trying to figure out a better time for him. So, oops, sorry, says Buckeye, more bang for the buck. Sassy Cant says NAD is effectively charging double for Purify compared to Buckeye. So save you some money. So Tiki Time, Atlanta. What's that?
I was going to say the only difference, if you want to bring aesthetics into it, the NAD has a really nice package.
They look really good.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that counts
that's
for
important
something.
to you. Then some people,
if you're going to look at them.
Sure.
Not that Buckeyes are ugly. It's just, NAD's kind of very, very polished.
Classy. Yeah, very classy. Tiki Town says Atlantic Technology came out with new towers, the 8600 Eyes. Have you invited Atlantic Technology to M-Wave? I don't have any kind of contact with Atlantic Technology, so they probably haven't gotten an invite from us. But I mean, I'd love to have them out there.
Like all of these shows, it's really difficult to invite people if you don't have a connection.
Yeah.
Regardless if you're CEDIA or your ISE or your Audio Advice or your Expona or any of those shows. I mean, if you don't have a connection and you're trying to invite people, if they don't approach you, it's hard to get a hold of somebody because you don't know who to get a hold of.
So one thing I would encourage you to do as consumers is reach out to the brands that you love and say, hey, man, I own your speakers, or I love your speakers or your amplifiers or whatever. And I'd love for you to exhibit at M-Wave, and send them a link to the website, And so that's coming from a consumer rather than, somebody that's running the show and a part of the show. So Simon, appreciate the $10 super chat. He says, I listened to 2-channel all my life, not home theater. Can y'all help me why people want to go backwards and listen to 2-channel for music or movies? 2-channel or higher doesn't matter what speaker setup.
So my question on this is, what is, like, if you have 7 speakers, but you're not doing upmixing, why can't you just do both in the same room? Or is it about speaker positioning, or is there something
I don't
missing?
understand the question.
I'm trying to, and Simon, I'm that's why I haven't spoken up, because I'm looking at that too, just trying to figure, and maybe just give us a little bit more context on that.
I think he's saying, why would you ever listen to 2-channel when you got more channels?
If you've got more speakers,
why not listen to spatial audio? Why are we doing 2-channel anymore? Yeah. That's how I took it.
I like 2-channel. I actually use MySpace primarily for 2-channel. I always have.
But it's in the same room. You just don't use all 50 speakers.
No. But now with things like Dirac Art or Chernov and their
waveforming,
their optimizer and waveforming. So when we get that implemented in the MavVR Experience Center, even if I'm doing 2-channel, it'll be interesting to demo native 2-channel against 2-channel with support groups and art and reinforcement from these room EQ pieces, because that can potentially provide a benefit in eliminating room modes.
Yeah, I really like, I'm not a big fan. Now, if I'm in a theater room, like in my theater room, I never, ever, ever listen to just 2-channel music, like ever.
Loser.
Well, that's okay. But my theater room, I don't know. I enjoy hearing, I like being immersed with everything. So I like all.
I'm with you. 2-channel's dead to me.
And that's okay, man.
Look at Ryan.
He's like, losers. Lewis or
I'm
Louis.
done. I'm out.
See you. Peace out, baby.
He's logged off for the night.
Okay.
These jack wagons, I can't even make sense of them.
Lewis says, I'm new into home audio as I have transitioned from car audio to home. Do you guys prefer a brand in speaker wires, or are they pretty much the same? I'm of the opinion that copper, for the most part, copper is copper. There's some
oxygen-free copper,
but like good copper is, I guess, what I'm saying. Yeah. So, I mean, there's some great brands out there. Blue Jeans cables, very affordable, mono price. I've used them for years. Who else do you guys use?
What I encourage people, if they want to go above and beyond and say, oh, I want something that I know is going to work and I know whatever, Mogami
cables. Okay.
I mean,
Well, is he
mainly
talking about cables or just like speaker wire, like bulk wire?
He says speaker wires. I'm assuming speaker cables, like to connect from your AVR to a pair of speakers or multiple speakers. That's where I say copper's copper. Just get some good quality copper cables. It's not going to matter if they're braided or
just get the proper gauge.
If there's hydrogen infused into the
off the hydrogen. I'm a firm believer.
I'm just saying, man.
Does somebody do that?
Personally, I just use the monoprice, and it's never failed me.
Monoprice. And Jonathan, what do you use?
Copper's copper. 100% copper's just fine.
I know a lot of people like, is it Belden? Is that the other one that's
Belden's good? They can be more expensive, but make sure you use the proper gauge for the distance and the power.
That's right.
Needed. Otherwise, you're opening yourself up to a potential lot of problems.
Web search Roger Russell wire table if you have any speaker cable questions. It's a really good site.
And if you want to be super cool and future-proof yourself, run 14.4, 12.4, 16.4, and have that extra pair, or utilize it if you want to be super cool and run a higher gauge.
Oops, sorry, says New Concepts is nice. He likes those. Cool.
Sorry for cutting you off, Jonathan.
Can you guys have a discussion about what reference level is? There seems to be a lot of misconception about what reference level is. Some say 85 dB with 105 peaks. Others say 75 average with 95 peaks. What is it?
Jonathan, am I pointing at you?
Yeah, I mean, we already you're pointing at Rusty.
Here's what you need to do. Honestly, Jonathan, you should make a video. Seriously, you should I've made a video on this, but you should make a video, and then every time somebody asks that, you just drop that video. That's where I get my ideas from. If I get a question that gets asked over and over and over, and then when they ask it on my channel, I'm going, check this video out. And it's not for more views. It's just, it's easier for me to say, hey, watch this video, because I'm going to give you a comprehensive understanding of this subject versus me trying to type it every single time.
So we typed this into chat earlier with Nicholas. He's probably on board now with what that means, but he is right. There's a lot of confusion on the forum. And even recently, I sent it to you guys, even recently, somebody calling out and saying, well, Jonathan said on the podcast, you need reference. I don't need reference. Well, that's fine. We talked about personal opinions in here many times.
Sure.
Reference is a standard though. And there isn't 85 dB peaks or 75 dB peaks or anything. It's supposed to open up, if it's calibrated correctly, that Rusty and I can have a conversation and say, I watched this at -6 and that was my preference. And Rusty can say, well, I watched it at -3 and that was my preference. And we know what that means because we've measured our equipment and set it to a standard level. Correct. So if you're not trying to talk to anyone about it, then it doesn't really matter, but it allows you to have a understanding of what the conversation is about. And regarding the 75 or 85 dB, that depends on the test tone that you're using to set your reference level. So we've talked about this on the show. In fact, I think we had a segment on this that you might have made a little, I don't know, half-hour segment out of or something, made a separate video on it. But most of your consumer brand AVRs, and by most, it's nearly all, have an internal test tone where if you set the receiver to reference level, so your main listening volume is at 0, you're going to be setting each speaker to 75 dB with the channel trims. So they won't all read the same. They will all have a different number based on the distance and so forth from your seat and the sensitivity of the speaker and all that kind of thing. The boutique receivers, the higher end receivers like the Storm or the Trenoff, their internal test tones will typically use an 85 dB test tone. So again, they turn the receiver to 0. and then they set each speaker to 85 dB. The reason the consumer receivers use 75 instead of 85 as that test tone is because a lot of consumer speakers start to struggle at 85 dB. The tweeter can blow on a cheap set of speakers or something if you're trying to set it to 85 dB. So Denon, Marantz, Yamaha, all the little companies like that, Onkyo, they all said, let's just avoid that whole situation. We'll lower it to 75 dB and we'll internally calculate that extra 10 dB into the full reference signal.
Mhm.
So reference is designed to give you 105 dB peaks at the seat. And once it's calibrated, all receivers are going to be the same. Assumingly, there's room for error with EQ and different measuring equipment and so forth like that. But the point is that when it's calibrated, we're watching a movie, we know what it is, what the peaks are at the main listening position. So that's it in a nutshell. And we have a much longer video on this. If you search Michael's channel, the Youthman channel, you'll find a longer video on it where there's a lot more discussion on the matter.
Yeah, and I wanted to. Here's kind of how I think about it. So I think there's two different topics that we're discussing. One is capable of playing at full reference volume, and then the other is calibrating to reference. Calibrating to reference, to me, I don't know why anybody would argue over this because it seems like the simplest thing in the world. I think about like if you're playing tracks on a CD or streaming, you would want, or I would want, that the volume from track to track would be relatively consistent. Unlike how commercials, every time you go to commercial, the volume would jump up 10 dB and it was obnoxious.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when we say calibrate to reference, we're just trying to get the same, pretty close to the same volume level from movie to movie. And then it would also be the same from house to house. So if I'm playing at 75 dB, it's the same as 75 dB at Jonathan's house. The whole thing about test tones is it's just, you could do your test tones at 105 dB if the receiver supported it, right? But why would you want to do that? Because that would be deafening, So for the sake of hearing safety and not playing test tones at 105 dB, you can calibrate at 75, and it's just a 30 dB offset. So there's nothing complicated about that either. So then the only remaining question is, do you need to be able to reproduce movies at reference volume? And that, I say, well, that's really just a matter of, how loud do you like it? I think a lot of us say, we like to have the option, even if we elect not to use it. It's about the only time I'm listening at full reference, main volume 0, is when I'm doing demos. But, sometimes, and there is variation from movie to movie. And, just turn the knob.
Just listen. Yeah, just listen.
Listen and turn it, because some movies, and so for me, some movies I want to, if it's an action movie, maybe I want it to be a little more in your face loud. If it's a drama, I don't want it dialogue screaming at me. So, that's just a matter of what do you prefer. But answering what Nick's saying in the chat, or Nicholas, it is 75 or 85. That is nothing but a test tone volume. You got to calibrate. You got to pick something. The receiver says, I'm putting out a 75 dB tone, I think, right? And then you need a microphone to measure that and say, is that actually 75 dB or is it something else? If it's something else, you make adjustments until it is 75. You close the measurement loop. So
on the channel level, on the specific channel level, so your main listening volume stays at 0, and your specific channel that you're measuring gets moved up or down. Most of them have a -10 to +10 or a -12 to +12, a range, and you're externally using your SPL meter, your calibrated mic, to set that to 75 dB if it's a consumer AVR. So Nicholas, if you're still confused on what's 75 or 85, we're missing something. We're not explaining it correctly because it's just really clear to us. So how do we make it clear to you?
I think what he's saying, so reference volume is 85 dB with
normalized,
peaks up to 105.
Yes.
But when you're let's say I have a Marantz or Denon AVR, that's that consumer level that Jonathan's talking about. Internally, when you're measuring the SPL, like with your SPL meter, and you're playing the test tones from that, you're going to measure for 75, but internally it's basically calibrating at 85. Is that correct, John? Does that make it?
It's playing, and Rusty's trying to explain this too. It's playing the sine wave sweep, or the pink noise as it is, the bandwidth limited pink noise. It's playing that at 30 dB below what it should be, because the engineers at Denon said we don't want to play it at 105.
It's loud
because it'd be blowing up speakers. At that point, really, truly would be blowing up speakers.
I tell you that anthem's loud as crap when you.
So they're saying, look, we know what reference is. We're gonna take that tone and we're gonna drop it 30 dB, and we're gonna let you set reference with 30 dB less, and then that offset isn't in play when you're playing content. It's just our test tone is lowered by 30 dB.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
When you're watching a movie, again, when you're watching a movie, it's 85. And that's not the average. That's the lowest. It's 80.
No.
You can record down to infinite, like a whisper or something.
That's true.
It's talking about average normalized volume. So it would say, like, if we're having this conversation in a movie, that's kind of, it would be the average dialogue volume, or the average volume is 85 dB, like kind of a standardized listening level with 20 dB headroom for peaks. So that's where you get your 105. And we're only talking speakers here. Bass is a different subject. It's actually 115 dB peaks on bass. But you still use 75 for consumer stuff to set your subs.
But that 75 number, it's arbitrary, or it's mostly arbitrary. You could calibrate at 50 dB. The problem with that is that usually your noise floor is going to be at about 50 dB. And so your microphone's not going to be able to distinguish the test tone from the noise floor. So that's
you're talking about a 50 dB drop of test tone, like
I'm saying if they decided, if Marantz decided they wanted to use a calibration test tone of 50 dB, they could use that. The problem is you don't have enough difference between the noise floor. What I'm trying to say is that 75 or 80 for the test tone, it's pretty much arbitrary, and it's set by the manufacturer. So it is just an offset.
Here's the last thing that I think people need to realize, though, too, is that reference is not necessarily what the mastering engineer mastered at, right? Because if you listen to two different, the dynamic range and the how the speaker, the sound, not the speaker, but the piece of content plays back, things can vary wildly. So you can have a piece of content be much quieter and one be much louder at the same volume setting of your AVR. So it's important. Reference is really a reference. I don't think it necessarily says that this is what every piece of content was mastered at. It's just that's the THX reference that the industry has set as a standard.
Ideally, it would be, but you're
ideally, yes,
that it's not, because some mixers mix for like 99 dB just internally. They decide I'm only going to mix to 99 instead of 105, so their tracks are mixed 6 dB less, for instance. So you're right. There's variance in different mixing and so forth that makes it that much more complicated.
Now, it's important to also, because somebody I'm sure here in chat is also wondering, like, why would you even want to calibrate to something that loud? And why do you need equipment that is that capable? Why do you guys constantly push for having equipment that is capable of doing reference? Well, here's why. If you're playing something back, even if it's not at reference, I talk about this all the time. You're going to have SPL fall off from the speaker to the main listening position. So if the equipment is not capable of producing X sound at X output, you're potentially going to run into compression, and you want to make sure that you have enough headroom. So getting a speaker that is capable of reference does not necessarily mean that you're going to be able to get reference in your room unless you sit 1 meter away from your speaker. So if the speaker is able to do 105, unless you have the room gain for your speaker to be able to do that at your main listening position, you ain't going to get 105 at your main listening position. So it's really, really important that you get a speaker that is capable of well more than reference to ensure that you're not running into some level of compression and distortion when you're trying to play back those volumes. Because if you're at I don't know, 3 meters from your main listening position, it may take your speaker 150, I'm just making something up, but 115 dB of output for you to get 105 peak with EQ at the main listening position.
I want to address two things in the chat, and I want y'all to check me on, make sure I'm saying this right so I don't perpetuate the myth.
And you can put them on the screen too.
If you, I can't talk and click at the same time. I'm not as talented as you guys.
All right.
It was the question was, is it so reference playback volume is 85 average? As I'm understanding this, if you've calibrated to whatever if you've just calibrated your receiver appropriately, right? If you put your main volume at 0, then that means that your average dialogue is going to be at 85 dB. So if you held up an SPL meter in your room while you're playing a movie, it's going to kind of average around 85 dB. And then when there's a gunshot, it's going to shoot up to 105 dB. Okay.
Yeah.
So, that all correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, with some variants, like we talked about, with different mixers, different sound designers choosing different levels, but in that ballpark.
Yes. And that's why, sound isn't like a perfect, I get excited when I'm, talking about some of these topics and I get louder and I go up 5 dB. And so, and then you calm down and you go down 5 dB. And so if you have you're calibrated and you say, well, I want it at -10 because 0 is just uncomfortable. Well, that means that your dialogue is now going to be an average around 75 dB. And your peaks are going to be average or peaking 95. At 95 dB. It's just an offset from a max.
A known.
Yeah, an objective measurement. It's just like defining how long is a foot or how big is a gallon. What is that standard reference? The other thing in the...
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say the other thing in the chat, I was talking about 50 dB is like my noise floor in my room. It's something like that, 40, 50. I can't remember exactly. I don't know what yours is, but in order to get good measurements from my mic, you have to go 20 to 30 dB above your noise floor. Otherwise, you can't get a good signal to noise ratio.
All true.
All right. Man, I've been verified.
Hey,
so this question here, Mattis says, how much volume I need to set on the Marantz to calibrate 85? The dial needs to be +10 or something else. I don't think you're still getting it. So let's break it down a different way here. Try to get you there. When you calibrate with a Marantz product, you're calibrating your speaker levels to 75, not 85. Then you're at 0 main volume, when you set it to 75, drop the 85 number. If you listen to a movie in the future after you've calibrated at 75 for every speaker trim, your dialogue will be at average 85 right there. So you don't have to go to +10. +10 would be 95 dB average with 115 dB peaks, and you'll probably blow up your speakers. So don't do that.
And Matt,
75 is where you want to calibrate
if you're asking about the physical volume, you don't even have to worry about that.
You do.
Like you don't have. What's that?
Your main listening volume has to be at 0 when you calibrate test tones. Because if you don't, the test tones will just drop in volume as you turn down your main volume. They absolutely do on the Marantz and Denon products.
Yeah, they do. If you're calibrating using the test tone generator in the Marantz and Denon.
Onkyo doesn't do it that way, or it used to not, but Denon and Marantz absolutely do. 100%. Bet any amount of money on it.
All right, I'm gonna have to go
the
back.
Test tone will play based on the.
So, like, if here, Michael, here's what we're saying. Make sure we're on the same page.
So if I turn it down to -35.
If you're in your test tone menus, speaker, channel level, and then
I'm talking about like when you run an Odyssey. That's what I mean.
That's
what I mean when you're calibrating.
No, the Odyssey doesn't care when it's doing a setup. It'll take over. And
I was like, Jonathan, I'm pretty sure there, buddy. Yes,
when you're setting up your channel levels to verify there's 35, or you're in the
meter.
Yes.
100%.
If your main listening volume is at like -30, now your trims are all jacked up. You need to put that at 0.
I guess what I was saying is at the beginning, let's say you put your microphone, you run Odyssey, you don't have to worry about where the volume, it's going to set it at reference.
Odyssey takes over.
Calibration.
Yes.
Then what I usually recommend is go back into what Jonathan's talking about, go into your speaker levels and you're going to take like an SPL meter at your main listening position. You're going to play your front left, and you're going to look on your SPL meter. So after calibration, that should say roughly 85 dB when you're measuring that. And then go to your center channel. Is it about 85? Is you're right? What I've found,
It'd be 75.
75.
what's that?
75.
Well, that's right, because it depends on what you're running. If oh my gosh,
We're
no wonder
confusing them
everybody's
real
so
good
dang
now.
Well, like
confused.
if you're just so yeah, what you picked up on is actually an important distinction that adds further to this confusion because it's a good point because when you're doing your automated, auto EQ, yeah, it doesn't matter what you set the main volume to, it's just going to set it to 75 dB output if it's the Marantz.
Yeah,
so you can turn that knob and it's not going to have any impact.
Correct.
However, when you go to do your final, fine tuning of your channels, you're doing it your level match. If you're going to manually tweak it, a few dB here and there, then you do want to set it to 0.
Correct.
So that when you
That
play the test tone, you get a 75 dB pink noise tone.
Right. Yeah.
So after all this,
You're right, man. Like I said, and keep in mind too, like I said, I went to bed at 5 a.m. this morning. I've been going ever since. So I'm a little sleep deprived. So
oh
cool,
yeah.
man.
And make sure it's a C-rated meter, man. It just keeps can we just have a do-over? Let's
we need to do a maybe that'll be a topic one. Well, we've done that though. Jonathan, do your video. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a video on this where we talked about it for 30 minutes. So if you're still confused on it tonight, then just go back to that video, perhaps. See if you can catch it
before we jump to that, here's another really good point.
PEQ.
AVR test tones don't account for PEQs. Needs to use an external disc. He's right.
Yeah, all of these things we're saying is like assuming you haven't jacked with settings and run things hot or tweaked outside the system.
I think he's even saying like Odyssey, let's say for instance, it's going to add PEQ to that. So ideally you want to use an external test tone so that it doesn't take that into equation.
Yes, because the test tone generator won't add those.
Okay.
Mattis, this still isn't right.
Oh, man. And it's okay, Mattis. I'm not laughing at you. I promise.
So 0 dB on the Marantz should show 75 on all speakers. That part's true. But giving 10 dB, so are you saying turn the main listening volume up 10? So now you're plus 10 on the main listening thing? It won't show. Well, no. Yes, it will. It will. That's right. If he's at 0 and he turn, okay, I'm coming to what you're saying. But the 95 in real world case scenario,
if he's after done calibration, it won't show 75. It'll show 85. It won't show 75.
No, that's not right. On a DIN and a Marantz, I'll tell you this.
But are you talking about test tones? Or are we talking about content?
The important distinction.
Okay, if we're talking about test tones, then yes. But if we're talking about content, which he didn't specify, it'll show 85.
Correct. Agree.
It's very difficult. Let's say this. It's very difficult to take out a cheap SPL meter and capture dialogue and see, oh, this reads 85. Good luck. Because the speaking tones are fast enough and varied enough that you're just not going to read it right. Not only that, but the sampling rate are different on all these cheap SPL meters. So you can't. That's why we have the test tones. You can't just go into a movie very easily.
Yes.
You just almost can't do it. Go into a movie and say, I'm going to set my reference level by listening to dialogue or something. Good luck. You can't really do that. That's why we have the test tones. So anytime you see these types of things, my mind's going to test tones because that's how you set it.
Yeah.
And I gave this analogy before. I'll do it again real quick. I bought a couple cheap SPL meters on Amazon and I did a clap test, which is just that, right? One of them read 10 or 12 dB hotter than the other because the sampling rates are different. And you can do that multiple times and they'll both read differently. So the test tone is a very specific constant tone. And that's how we're setting our levels, because it's a constant tone versus very dialogue or dynamic peaks and stuff like that.
This is the comment of the night right here. You win the internet today, brother. He rods. This is more confusing than Oppenheimer and Interstellar combined. I love it.
Good stuff. At least it's entertaining.
Yeah. And the thing is it is confusing, especially when you've got certain brands that calibrate one SPL other brands doing another. That does get confusing.
Moving on.
There we go. Wes, appreciate the $5 super chat. Thoughts on stacking different subs? Not many options for placement, so he's limited there in his room. Would a 15 on top of a 12-inch for the front ported? Okay, so in my opinion, I'd put the 15 on the bottom if you're going to stack those two and put your 12 on top. I would imagine your 15, and the only reason I'm saying is it's just going to be more stable. You don't want a bigger box on top of a smaller box unless you just got a massive 12-inch subwoofer cabinet. So I guess this question is, he doesn't have a lot of options. He wants to get more SPL. So stacking them would give him what, 6 dB? Is it 6 dB if you stack?
Yes.
So 6 dB more output relatively. I guess a 10 and
That's
12
with the same driver and the same amp, though.
That's what I'm saying, relatively. So not exactly apples to apples there, but he's going to get more, excuse me, output.
Couldn't you run into phasing problems doing this, though?
Stacking them? No.
No, with different
so.
port tunes and...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I don't think this is a good idea.
Okay.
I think this is...
I did it with identical speakers.
Typically, when you stack and stuff, you want to do it with the same sub. Doing it with different things, I just feel like it's gonna cause more problems than it's worth trying to fix. The phasing issues you're gonna run into with different port tunes, and it's just gonna cause mayhem in your frequency response. And a lot of times, depending on what these subs are, that 12 may not be able to keep up with the 15 or vice versa. I'd need to know what the subs were. It may not even be worth having one or the other playing at the same time.
Sure. Not all subs are created equal. So before we get to the next one, there's like still 200 people here. There was 240 just a little bit ago. If you're enjoying this, man, hit a thumbs up, man. Let YouTube know you like this. Maybe they'll send it out to more people. Christian, appreciate the $5 super chat. What do you guys think of the JBL HDI series? There's a great deal on the 3800 on audio advice.
Is that deal still around? That 3800 for like 1/5 price?
Super cheap.
Was out like a month ago. That's a great speaker for what it's worth.
Subjectively, I've never been a huge fan of what it sounded like, though.
100 plus ABS forum. Let's see if that thing's
While
still
he's
around.
looking that up, Fuzz. I've been told that Anthem is like 10 dB hotter than most. So that may be
for what?
Because I kind of noticed that too. Like -10 is still stinking loud on an Anthem.
Maybe they use an 85.
It's definitely, even their test tones are, I mean, like, I want to walk out of the room. It's pretty stinking loud. Definitely not like Odyssey. So, but yeah, I think they're on a different scale there.
I think you'll find mostly good feedback on the HDI series from JBL. I mean, Ryan doesn't like it, but all those speaker decisions are subjective preference.
It's not that I don't think they measure well. I just subjectively don't like the way they sound.
Well,
that doesn't mean they're bad speakers. I just don't like the way they sound.
Ryan, just out of curiosity, where'd you hear it? Was it set up in someone's room, or was it a show?
No, it was set up at. I've heard it multiple times. Last time was at the JBL ISE booth in their dedicated room. I just wasn't a fan of how maybe it was the EQ. I don't know. I just wasn't a huge fan of it.
All right, I'm gonna see if I can get through some of these quick. Home Theater Denmark, Jonathan, 105 dB THX reference. Dang, how do I get my Cinema 40 and Crown 2500 to that level? I got around 400 watts in my LCR.
I think this is an old comment. And I see other people in the comments saying you guys are losing me. So let's
go. Carl says, if I install MadVR Envy in my home theater, will it make a streaming content on the 4K projector not look like trash? So can you take doo-doo and make it into something beautiful?
Poo-poo in, poo-poo out.
Crap
in, crap out, right? You can polish a turd, but it's still a turd. You can't make it not a turd.
What? Smell even if you
do we all agree that streaming content looks like trash? I don't think so.
I was using this as I typically use it as broadcast
audio.
television.
I think the video quality is actually pretty good. The audio is where I struggle.
We're gonna do this at M-Wave though.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you, Michael. I think the audio stuff is more noticeable than the video. To me, I don't
And
know
most of the
that
time
my
it's in the
streaming
base.
looks trashy. It looks pretty nice.
Yeah. Yeah,
for
the
the most
video
part.
quality is decent.
Maybe he's streaming from a bootleg movie website.
Who knows?
I don't know. But
Chris,
the biggest thing here is crap in, crap out. Envy
Correct.
can do a lot of really cool things,
Mhm.
but if you feed it crap, it can
Yeah.
potentially make crap look worse because it's only got to go on what you give it, and
Yeah.
it doesn't actually know what the image should look like. It's just going to make it what it thinks, given the data that it has, the best that it can as an
And
outcome.
even like in photography, if you take a low resolution image and let's say it's all pixelated because somebody took it, stretched it, so now you're seeing the pixels. You can take that in like image enhancers, and it's just still, it's not going to be as good as a great high quality image.
So I'm just going to piggyback on this one. Can a Mad VR bypass a TV's video processor? Our recommendation for anybody that doesn't know, I also work for Mad VR. I do all of their training and support internationally. So what we typically recommend when you set up a display, when you're doing Mad VR, is you turn off all of its internal processing. So it's just becoming a display. It's not processing anything. Now, you can't turn off everything, but as much as we can in the options, we turn it off. And it's effectively thinking that all it's representing and showcasing is SDR, even though we may be sending in an HDR signal encapsulated inside of a traditional gamma function. It thinks it's just representing SDR given the correct gamut, BT709, BT2020, so forth. So yes, we can. If you're thinking of like tone mapping, yeah, the display doesn't do any of that. We do it all. And then the display is just a, lack of a better expression, a dumb box at that point, just doing what it can to showcase light from one point to another, either self-emitting or a projector.
Chris Contreras says, I'm looking to install 4 in-ceiling speakers for Dolby Atmos. Is there a brand or model? Man, that's just super, super vague.
Bose.
I would recommend whatever you've got. If you got Polk, look for some Polk. If you got clips, look for some clips. If you got SVS or Martin Logan, I always like to recommend just stay with the brand that you've got. And even in that same series, because it can vary from series to series on how those sound. Evangeliste, nothing is wrong with the Curve TV. Got some love there. Dell says
Rusty disagrees. Can't see it. Too much reflection.
Those white van
Obviously,
guys almost got me
Rusty's
too.
ears are wrong.
Ears. I'm gonna skip past some of these. Yeah. Oh man, who started all the white van comments?
That was me. I was just wanting to show that I'm not
an
only
idiot.
person
I'm not an
that
idiot.
fell for it.
All right. So here's what I'd recommend. Instead of starring them, like as we're talking about, just bring them on screen, like as we're talking, because then it's like relevant right then. So that'll be helpful.
I liked revisiting this.
I find it says, I feel like some of the community can't find appreciation for anything other than, okay, we talked about that one, right?
We did.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
that.
Perfect. Chris says, M-Wave shirt idea. Jonathan made me do it with a Ryan punched face. Chris, you never cease to amaze me. I find is I get the RS1 is in game, but that doesn't mean everything else sucks. That is correct. I totally agree with that. And I don't even necessarily agree that RS1 is, I mean, it's not the only in-game support. It's in-game for me.
Well, hold on.
That?
I think there is something to be said for objectively better.
Correct. Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that everything at a different price point is.
Yeah. Anything other than JTR, I don't think that's the conversation.
I would say it doesn't mean you shouldn't buy anything but JTR. It depends on what you're trying to do. There's going to be compromises. There's going to be budgets. There's going to be aesthetics, wife approval factors, all that kind of stuff. But
space limitations.
There is an objective pinnacle at some point, and there are certain pieces of hardware that are the best. I mean, if we don't go that way, it's like saying
everything's subjective.
That the LG 810 PW is on the equal playing field with a Christie Eclipse.
Sure.
I know that's an extreme, but there is an objectively better option. It's just more expensive.
Yeah.
So maybe you could define that there is a option at each price point, but at some point there is an objective best.
Yeah.
No bars hold. This is the
And
best.
I think all four of us would agree there are some great subwoofers on the market that are not JTR or are not Ascendo. I don't think we've ever said that there aren't. We've
Jonathan
recommended
doesn't
a bunch
even
of
use JTR.
I mean,
And
I've
he's wrong,
recommended
but-
I've recommended the shoe. I've just researched not so I did there. I didn't research. I just reviewed one of the shoe. I'm getting another one in probably mid-April. They just announced a new one. So I'm actually going to do some measurements. Let's see how the old one measures against a new one. So I have some fun with that. But that's a lot more affordable and still a great subwoofer. But does it go down to single digits? No.
But
Can
it's
the
also
JTR
not just about single digits either.
Apparently not. No, I think based on the comments we've gotten tonight.
Rusty's looking up at Ryan's head movement, I think, and he's like, "What?
I'm listening to
What
music.
is
So
transpiring?"
Ryan's having fun at this.
let me
point.
have my 2-channel experience that you guys don't like anymore. Okay, get out of here.
Funny, funny.
I love it, man. I love it. Listen to this one says, to be honest, I would prefer less bass at M-Wave. The rooms just made so much noise that it's hard to hear anything else. For instance, I wanted to hear the focals, and the JTR room would make it impossible.
This
They
is
were
a
on
Kansas City
complete
guy. We'll beat him up
opposite
later.
sides.
What's
Did
that?
you hear the JTR room from the they were on total opposite sides of the
Yeah, that was like, yeah. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. Did you let us know? Listen, did you come last year? Because they were actually on different ends of the
Now-
convention center.
we don't tell the vendors what to bring.
Mm-mm.
I do tell them that if you guys want to compete, everybody else pulls out all the stops. But I don't tell them. We didn't tell Jeff, hey, you need to bring
I
8
told Jeff.
4000s.
I told Jeff he's got enough, and he said I'm bringing 4 more or 2 more or whatever. I'm like, you're nuts. So
But
yeah, it's hard, man.
Well,
I'll be
and I
honest.
part
think,
of why they do it is these rooms are enormous. And
They're
if you want
big.
any type
Yeah.
of pressurization in the room,
Yeah.
you got to have huge amounts of firepower to be able to do it.
They're like 40 feet deep.
I think
20
they're
something feet.
28 by 48.
They're massive rooms. I wish they were a little bit smaller, but they're not. So
Well,
probably
and-
the stereo integrity room.
we've heard that comment a few times, and
Yeah.
we've done
And it's
some
reality.
rearranging this year to improve it, but there's only so much you can do, and there's also some restrictions that certain vendors request specific rooms, and so
The hardest thing is the reality is you've got bass that's going to travel, and in this space, the home theater market, home theater hobby, that's unfortunately that's what we've got to deal with. We
Mhm.
don't have isolated rooms.
I mean, they do pretty well in comparison to other
Sure.
shows for the amount of low frequency that we
Yeah.
put out.
it's still
that
better than a
show-
hotel. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
honestly, the hotel, you're going to hear it. I mean, you won't be able to have a conversation next door. So at least
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
better.
put this in perspective. Last year they had 2 stereo integrity 24s, and it was knocking drywall dust off the ceiling.
Yeah,
And
he's bringing
and
8
you,
this year. I know, man. I'm like, and
I think that you guys are absolutely accurate. That the concrete walls that they use at that place are very. They're a lot better than other shows that I've been to, where you can hear something like JTR set up halfway on the other side of the whole event.
sure.
Where I was surprised when you walk out of those rooms and
Yeah,
it's
it's
containing
decently
as well as
quiet,
it is,
Correct,
quite
yeah.
frankly. Because that,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the event center is all concrete, so it's
Yeah.
about the best case scenario for this type of environment. And if this isn't for you, I mean, if you don't like hearing the bass, then maybe explore.
Well,
or something, but this is
and
awesome.
this is a fair comment because I've heard this before that
Yes.
they struggled to hear like JVC's seminar over the JTR speakers, which are on the other side of the wall, and there was even a hallway separating them. So,
Mhm.
and I get that. So maybe I don't remember if they had a microphone in JVC's room. So maybe that's just
no,
the-
I think last year JVC was right next door to JTR. Yeah, maybe it was
Oh,
one
you're
room
right. I'm
last
thinking
year.
seminar room.
But this
might have
year,
been
and
a
that's what I'm
TV
saying,
room.
we've
I'm
made
thinking
some improvements, because if you look at the map on MidwestAVExperience.com/brands, JVC is now across the hall and further towards the bottom. I'm not sure what direction that is. I don't think it's south. Yeah, thank you. So
Probably
it's down lower, And then if you look, JTR and stereo integrity are up at the top right. So there's a little more separation.
Yeah. So the hard part is going to be the ones that are in between those rooms.
FOMO and Brian are just screwed being next to JTR.
Yeah, they're going to be sandwiched.
But I'm doing that intentionally because I'm using them as a buffer, right? Because yes, they're going to talk, but I didn't want them in part because they don't have any audio presence, right? They're not reliant on that. And there may be some other changes that come up. I don't know. We're trying to do our best with separating all of these brands, but you put one next to another one, you just create another level of problems.
Yeah. Hey, these are growing pains, man. We didn't have this 2 years ago when we started.
We had 4 brands.
We had like nobody there as far as the brands, and now it
was a lot of fun though.
We're blessed with like 15 brands, no more than that. I don't even know how many brands we've got, but there's probably 20 or so brands this year. So that's huge compared to the year one. So Jonathan was at year one. Rusty was at year one. It looks a whole lot different.
But year one was a lot of fun.
It was awesome. It was super cool. But where I'm going with that, these are just growing pains, you know? Nobody's doing what we're doing. So we're kind of pioneering through this, trying to figure it out. And you guys have just been so amazing with the community, and the vendors have been great. And it's all Jeff's fault. You know, that's what I said too. Onred, appreciate the $2 super chat. He says, I want to hear you guys' take on my last question.
Do you guys run your center channel?
Thank you.
Already got it.
Wrong one. Wait, is it that one or is it?
Should be the most recent.
I'm not sure which one's the last one.
Let us know if that's the one you're asking. Let's go ahead and answer it. Do you guys on the test tone go a little higher on the center channel? Okay. So do you increase the center channel? I don't. I leave them level matched. No, honestly, I used to when I had a horizontal center and I did not have an LCR, 3 identical speakers, I did bump up my center channel. And I believe the reason why is because the horizontal center channel oftentimes is a compromise. It's not as good. So I was bumping it up to make it louder because I couldn't hear it as well because it wasn't as good as my towers, if that makes sense. So, but now that I've got an LCR, I don't. Was there another question that he had?
I scrolled through and that's the only one I saw.
Okay.
A lot of people will increase their center channels because they're encountering distortion and they can't understand what the center channel is putting out. So they increase it because we perceive an increase in SPL as an increase in clarity. But what they're actually encountering, as said previously, is distortion. So the first thing you should address is if you are having to increase the volume of your center channel, treat your room and or look at the speaker and its capabilities and what you're trying to ask of it.
This is an interesting question. JR says, question, what is the worst looking but best sounding speaker that you've seen and heard?
JTR.
I'll be honest, man. When I first saw JTR, I'm like, they look pretty blah. I mean, like they're not sexy. They're not, I mean, now I've come to love them, but I'm looking at, especially now I've got 3 of them and then the matching, they're all the same height. I think it looks really cool. But initially I was like, but dadgum, they sound amazing.
Yeah.
You know,
the Black Swan.
Black Swans aren't great looking speaker. They got this big old funky oval horn on the top,
on top of a big rectangle,
big square box on the bottom,
which is probably why they're called the Black Swan.
Never thought
I don't know,
of that.
but
Interesting.
They're meant to be behind a screen.
Sure. Same thing with JTR a lot.
They're currently sitting in my living room.
Nicholas says he loves them.
It reminds me of like, you remember like you'd see like a ship and the cart, and they'd have like the intake duct on the top level of the ship.
Yes,
know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about? That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
It's a huge waveguide.
You got any ugly speakers that really sounded great?
Probably nothing else other than what you guys said. I know Exponent has some very ugly speakers, but I'm not sure I thought
none of them sounded that great.
Good when they're ugly.
Yeah.
JTR 70J1.
Miles says, any recommendations on a 10 by 12 room sub 20 hertz? I guess he's asking for subwoofer man, again, a lot of great things. Shoe, rhythmic, depends on your budget.
10
JTR.
by 12 rooms, not real big, so you probably have more options than you
Mhm.
think. Really.
Yeah. I think there's quite a bit, especially 20 hertz. There's a lot of subs that are very capable. SVS, the clips
JTR
are
4000.
yeah. Clips, yeah, that'll be your couch. You just sit on it, lay it sideways.
Guys, we're not talking about Scott Newby.
Mike Larry says, I was torn between buying a JTR RS1 or the Paradigm XR13. With my system being in our living room, there was lots of factors to consider. In the end, I paid a lot more money to get far less output. And nothing wrong with that.
Compromise, man.
If it works, great. I'll be honest, I had the chance to demo, and I don't know the model number, but I'm kind of thinking it was their XR series in the Anthem Paradigm demo room or showroom at CEDIA last year. That was super impressive, man. It's a really small profile. They're gorgeous looking subs. I don't know what they measured, but just as far as the experience in the room, and that was a pretty big room, dude, I was super impressed with it. So nothing wrong with that, man. What do you think about a PSA subwoofer? Yeah.
On the previous question, it does highlight the importance of compromise. It all
Sure.
depends on what you're trying to get at.
What's your objective?
Aesthetics, wife approval factor.
Yeah.
You know, the Paradigm's probably going to cross a lot of those bridges a lot easier than the JTR will.
Oh, for sure.
You just sacrifice output. So it's all about give and take.
Mhm.
Nothing's going to have everything unless you pay a lot of money for that something.
Yeah. Like if you want small, single digits, massive output, yeah, ain't happening. You know, typically you got big, massive, you know, it's like that 2 out of 3, you know, when they give you the equation, you have any 2 out of these 3 options, you know, y'all know where I'm going with that?
Yeah. Size, single digits. And what was the
Price,
third
maybe?
one?
Aesthetics.
Pick two, basically.
Something like that.
Yeah, I've heard that before. I don't remember.
We do it in even like when you're getting a service from somebody, it's like, do you want it fast? Do you want it cheap? And what was the other one? And basically like you good or something like that, good quality. Well, you only get 2 of those. If you want it fast and cheap, it's not going to be good. If you want it fast and good, it's not going to be cheap, kind of thing. So pick 2. What do you think about Power Sound Audio subwoofers? I've reviewed only one. It was a 36. And what was that model? 3611, I think. It was a dual opposing 18. That was honestly the first, what I call like real bad boy subwoofer that I've ever experienced. It was powerful. Really, really good subwoofer. I haven't reviewed or really heard any of Tom's newer models, so I don't know how those compare. But like the iPal, I think that's some of the newer models. But I know Tom makes some really good stuff. He was actually the his last name starts with a V, Vorderheim or something like that. So he's the S, or in SVS, he's the V in SVS. So he actually worked with them a long time ago and then ventured off on his own. But Tom makes some great subwoofers. So.
Yeah, good products.
Let's see. A couple more here. So are there going to be any 4K players at M-Waves? Come on, man. He wants some. Actually, there are.
Magnetar.
Magnavox.
Magnetar. Good Lord.
Magnetar. Sorry,
Magnavox.
Wasn't
We going back
that,
to the 90s and the 80s?
Like I said, dude, sleep deprivation is a real thing right now. 5 a.m.
Wasn't the Cinemike Oppo or something?
Well, the Oppo will be there with Cinemike, the Magnetar, the Arvolution, the Kaleidoscape. I'm sure there will be some. Huh?
I think he's talking about like 4K players, like a disc. I'm thinking
there will probably be some Panasonics floating around as demo players. There's not any officially there outside of Magnetar.
Yeah. We'll have definitely some Kaleidoscape. Kaleidoscape is just so easy on a show like this because we can set up scripts and it just makes it really easy for the vendors. Arvolution thoughts. I've reviewed one. I've got another one coming in sometime, the 8K. Don't know anything about it yet. So
they do well at what they do.
I think my only, not complaint, but my one desire, and I expressed that in my review, is that, and they're working on that, is the load time of the menu. So, or not the cover art, I guess you call it. So when you're scrolling through your list of media, those just took a little bit to load. You could see them physically loading. There was a delay, but that's because it's pulling off the cloud, all of those files. But eventually they want to get that information on, like, stored locally. So that'll speed up that process. But as far as a player, I haven't had any issues with it. Home Theater Denmark, quick HDMI question. Would anyone buy the THX HDMI cable? I saw like an article on that, but I don't know anything about it. THX HDMI cable. Have y'all heard about that?
Nope.
I thought there was, here is it that?
I heard something about it, but I don't really
you.
have much of an opinion other than I
Yeah.
question whether they're going to tell you what it's certified to.
Yeah, it just says THX Ltd announces new THX interconnect cables to elevate home theater entertainment. This is back in August of 23. It looks like standard HDMI cable. So there's an article on it as far as, like, you know, hopefully it passes and it works.
Well, I mean, what's that doing that HDMI org's not doing as far as the certified cables that already exist? It's
but a lot of one of the problems with the HDI space is there's no repercussion for saying you do something and then don't.
Like
right. And there's a lot of, there's potentially, I mean, we've seen this time and time again from manufacturers is they think they're doing something and they're actually not. And there's problems that exist in their cable that then need to be redesigned, figured out. So while yes, there is a governing body, it doesn't mean that the cables that say they are certified are actually meeting those requirements.
Well, but there is a true HDMI.org certification. It's got a holographic sticker.
I agree. There is.
That's the one to get, in my opinion.
Yes, but you can still run into problems with it.
It'd be the exception versus the rule, I think, right? Because they're engineered to a point, and HDMI's stamp their approval on it. If you'll get people that lie about it if you go to Amazon and buy like Chinese cables that are.
I'm not talking about Chinese cables at all. There's many reputable companies that we have run into that have then, like this, there's certain displays that have problems with attenuated signals or not attenuated signals, and then they have problems with them. And because of that, we had to send a bunch of stuff to independent labs for testing, and it uncovered a lot of things with a lot of reputable brands that you would have thought were doing things, and they didn't know. It was just things were happening, and the measurements showed that they weren't meeting spec and they were causing problems. So I don't think these companies were not doing it intentionally, and they very willfully went back and said, yeah, we're going to correct this stuff. But it was there nonetheless.
Can you give us any more information?
This was back in no.
I was trying to run somebody under the bus.
Because they've corrected a lot of this, and I don't want to create a PR thing for him.
Stop poking the bear, John.
I'll talk to you after the stream
about it. He's getting the inner scoop. All right, so Reese 3 currently have one PB16 Ultra looking to go dual. Will Klipsch RP1600 be able to keep up? Yes.
I wouldn't mix.
But I'm just saying it can keep up.
It can, but I wouldn't mix.
Yeah. I agree.
You can get away with it a lot of times in seal, but I wouldn't mix imported.
Didn't we see that RP, was it the 1400 or the 1600? One of them was just dirt cheap here recently.
1400 was like $700.
And that's what was that? That's the 14-inch. Yeah, 14-inch.
The new subs are Klipsch subs. I haven't seen any measurements on them, but
I still can't believe they never sent me one. So they're like, you're on the list. We'll send you one. Never saw it.
Their equipment will be at M-Wave again.
Oh yeah, because we got a little teaser. Got some more people we're working on. Actually, 2 new rooms that we'll be adding to M-Wave potentially. So one is just confirming the vendors that they're going to be bringing in the room, and once they they know those for sure, then they're going to let me know, and then we can announce those. Last 2 questions of the night as we round out the 3-hour podcast marathon. Ryan, I'm looking at a Ascendo AS16 sealed sub. Don't see any reviews of it. Looks like a complete sub that plays till 20 hertz. Your take, please.
It's really good. I've got one in my living room right now. I don't have the spinorama data on it yet. I don't know if it's been sent to this sub's been sent to the independent lab. But Ascendo gets all of their stuff Clipple tested. I think one of the only things that hasn't been Clippled is the 50 because it won't fit on a Clipple. But everything else, I mean, it's all publicly available. So Ascendo doesn't hide behind anything. And I have one of those 16s in my living room with the black swans right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to believe that sub is doing what it's doing in my big space. It's really good. I really like it. But that's subjective. I don't have any objective data on it yet.
So the 1600 is 1350 at Crutchfield right now. All right. And the last question of the night comes from our man, Christian. Is Perlisten coming to M-Wave again? We would love for them to be. The cool thing, well, let me answer this. No, they're not going to be there with a demo room, an experience.
Eric is, though.
But Eric is coming. So Eric is going to be leading one of our seminars, which I'm super pumped about. And a lot of, honestly, these guys just have so many shows that they're going to. It's a budgeting limited factor and personnel, bringing everybody. So not this year. Hopefully we can get them back again next year. But Eric's coming, so we're really grateful. I heard absolutely amazing things last year about his seminar. Everybody said it was just super educational. So looking forward to that. And he's partnering with what, Matt? With Storm?
Walt.
Oh, Walt. Okay.
From Cedia.
Okay. For some reason I thought Matt was.
Now, I don't know if that's 100% confirmed yet.
Okay.
So I've got to reach out to Walt this week and make sure that that's happening. But yeah, they're going to talk about, I think, RP22.
The new standards.
Mm-hmm.
And Eric did a fantastic presentation
He
last
did.
year. So I'm glad to see he's coming back.
We are telling anybody that's doing a seminar, like my biggest thing to them when I tell them if they want to do a seminar, do not make it a sales pitch.
Yeah. And we've all told them that. Someone didn't listen, but I did. I had that conversation. I'm like, look, the idea behind the seminar is we want attendees to come and leave with information they didn't have before that they can take that home and implement it into their systems. So those are great things to be able to do. So if you're a subwoofer manufacturer, sure, tell them about your subwoofers, how you meet whatever blank, but teach them something. Teach them the benefits of multi-sub. How do you calibrate multi-sub? Something like that versus here's my subwoofer, here's what it measures, here's why you should buy from us kind of thing.
Here's what I tell them. That if you're going to educate, people will draw the correlation behind your education and your product.
That's correct.
So if you don't need to tell them, well, this is what we're doing in our product. If you just provide the education, the correlation is automatically made by the customer. So just educate, provide the education with the enthusiasts that come to the show, because that's primarily our audience. They do that themselves. They don't need to be told that this is, like in Perlisten's case, that this is what they do and how they design their speakers. Eric giving that presentation and his knowledge was enough for them to realize that.
Mm-hmm. For sure, man. Well, man, we've had some incredible conversation. You guys have rocked in the comments, so we appreciate all the questions. You've got some great questions. We really do truly hope that the podcast provides value to you guys, that not only is it fun, we try to be light and entertaining, but we want you to, get value out of it, and we want to help you out and just be a blessing to you. Jared says tonight's episode was really good and fun. Appreciate that, man. Have a great Holy Week and be blessed. Definitely appreciate that. I was looking. Oh yeah. Man, things like this we would love to do at M-Wave. So again, it's just finding somebody that's willing to lead that seminar. Plus, we also have.
What was that question?
I think about
timeline with mini DSP.
That'd be super cool. Oh.
I think Storm is doing stuff on calibration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What extent I don't know, but they are doing stuff.
that's my reminder to.
Are we going to stream this upcoming weekend? It's Easter.
I don't know. I hadn't thought that far ahead. So,
Let's do Saturday then.
that work for you guys?
Probably not for me. I think our family thing's on Saturday instead of Sunday because we all have commitments Sunday. But
Either way, we'll let you know.
you guys do. If I can't join, still just do it anyway if you
Okay,
want.
well, we'll figure it out then. Let everybody know.
Yeah, we'll let you know what we decide. So,
That's Bob
yeah.
Gray says, please have something on acoustics. I don't know, approaching acoustics, he says, but I think the acoustic treatment thing would still be interesting too. We talked about in that previous podcast.
Yeah.
If there was a way to do that, it's
Yeah.
tricky. It's
hard
tricky.
with these huge rooms though too.
Mhm.
Well, I think we talked offline. I think what he's asking is even if it was just
teaching, yeah.
educational, even if you couldn't do the panels and everything, like not a
drawing.
demonstration, but just a talk.
Mhm.
When to use 2-inch, when to use 4-inch, what type of materials, those kind of things. I think, and when do you use diffusion? Where do you place diffusion? I think that would definitely be super educational. I had a talk with Matthew Pose, so he would love to come, but he's got kind of a family obligation. So they're trying to figure out if their visa's going to work because I guess her daughter's trying to renew her visa. It's going to be about 4 to 6 weeks. If they can't get it renewed, then he might be able to come, sadly. But if they do get it renewed, then of course, he's got his family vacation. But yeah, we'd love to have things like that. And again, every year we just want to add value to the event so that when you come, you leave a more educated enthusiast than when you came. And along the way, you made some incredible friends and had some great experiences along the way. So it's 3:01 hour. We're going to wrap it up here, guys. I hope you have an incredible week. It's been fun, fellas. Appreciate you guys. And we'll catch you in the next stream.